just a link. Welcome everybody to the November 20th, 2024 meeting of the Quincy Planning Board. I will start by taking roll call.
Ali Shaughnessy here.
John Kelly present.
Larry Luzo, present.
Kim Beelen present.
Christopher Meade present.
BJ Foley present.
Great. So the first item on the agenda is to vote on the minutes of the October 16th Planning Board meeting.
Move to approve.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, and I will abstain, I was not here. And the next item on the agenda is a new business item, the Planning Board meeting calendar for 2025. So I think it's in our packet, the proposed dates.
Yep, Madam Chair, through you to the board, the department has provided the lineup for the 2025 calendar year. As we had last year, we did move for one meeting between July and August. That resulted in pushing the June meeting back a month and the August meeting up a month to kind of close some of the gap distance in there. But other than the June and the August meeting, you know, it's the third Wednesdays of each of the months. We check this against holidays, so this would be the recommended calendar.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions about it? Looks good. So do we need a motion to approve it?
We would, yes.
Okay.
A motion to approve the 2025 planning board meeting for the third Wednesday of the month.
Okay.
Second that.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, that's unanimous.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The first item on the agenda is a continued public hearing for 50 Cushing Street. This is Planning Board Case Number 2024-07. We did receive correspondence from Attorney Patrick Foley. He's not here. I'll just read it for the record. Dear Mr. Fatsis, as you may know, this office represents 50 Cushing Street LLC with regards for their application for site plan approval for adding 2 townhouse-style units to the existing single-family home. On behalf of the applicant, please accept this letter as a withdrawal of the application. Sincerely, Patrick Foley. Do we need a motion to approve? Okay.
Or motion to
To
accept.
accept the withdrawal.
Yeah,
without prejudice.
So moved. A motion to accept without prejudice.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
All right, we'll get that to Member Kelly and Member Liuzzo. All those in favor? Aye. Okay. And that is unanimous. Okay, next on the agenda is also a continued special permit application, 56 to 74 and 126 Granite Street, Planning Board Case Number 2024-10. The public hearing was held during the October meeting, and it was closed at that time. I would invite Attorney Mahoney up. You just want to give some comments about what's happened since then?
Sure, thank you, Madam Chair. For the record, Attorney David Mahoney, and I represent the Grossman Companies. We had the public hearing a month ago at your October meeting. The public hearing was closed. Since that time, it's gone out to peer review. We have comments back from the peer reviewers. Our professionals have returned the favor and commented on that. We've had comments from the department heads. Our team of professionals has also commented on those letters that came from the city department heads. We have the entire team here tonight if there are questions from the board.
Okay, great.
Okay.
Thank you. And I did also want to note that Anna Lee Johnson submitted comments, a correspondence, and that's been added to the file as well. So without further ado, does the department have a recommendation on this?
Yes, we do, Madam Chair. Through you to the board. I would add to Attorney Mahoney, the department did organize a developer and city review team meeting after the last meeting to really expedite the review process. Sometimes with this, there's a number of back and forths, so we really had sort of one group of back and forth. And the proponent team has answered all of the issues that have been brought up in that review satisfactorily. Towards that end, after consideration of the site plan, accompanying documents, and the comments received from city staff and the peer review consultant, the department recommends the board approve the site plan review under Quincy zoning ordinance Title 17, Section 9.5.1 and 8.3.6 site plan review and special permits under Section 8.3.2.1, Section 8.3.2.2, and Section 5.1.17, subject to the below listed special and general conditions. Special condition 1, the applicant shall obtain all applicable findings, variances, and special permits if needed from the City of Quincy Zoning Board of Appeal. 2, applicant shall comply with the City of Quincy Inclusionary Zoning Ordinance, Section 7. The applicant shall submit an IZO application to the Affordable Housing Trust Fund Committee prior to the issuance of a building permit. Decision by the Affordable Housing Trust Fund Committee shall be made on the subject property prior to the issuance of a temporary or final occupancy permit. Number 3, prior to the issuance of an occupancy permit, the applicant shall demonstrate compliance with Section 8.3.9, the Public Art and Placemaking Program, by issuing a report for review and approval by the Planning Director. 4, the applicant shall submit a construction management plan to be filed and approved prior to the issuance of a building permit. This shall include the locations of stockpile and/or staging areas for construction equipment and materials. Applicant shall also address construction period traffic impacts by providing a detailed sequence of construction and addressing any space constraints and detailing how they'll be addressed as construction progresses. 5, the applicant shall reconstruct the sidewalk along the entire property frontage of Granite Street, Bergen Parkway, and Hannon Parkway with a new concrete sidewalk, broom finish with a border and tool joints, and reset or replace granite curbing as specified by the Department of Public Works. Applicant shall provide ADA and AAB compliant sidewalks and wheelchair ramps at all crosswalks within the site. 6, prior to the issuance of a certificate of occupancy for the proposed project, the applicant shall provide a contribution of $26,000 to fund a road safety audit to determine what additional future roadway improvements are feasible to reduce the crash experience along Bergen Parkway. 7, 1 week prior to any land disturbance activities, the applicant shall conduct an on-site inspection with the City of Quincy and/or its designated representative to observe the erosion controls installed at the site and review the erosion controls anticipated to be employed during construction. 8, the applicant shall obtain a drain permit and stormwater management permit from the Department of Public Works prior to the issuance of a building permit. 9, prior to the issuance of a building permit, the existing sewer service pipes and water main shall be inspected with television pre-development in order to check the condition of the system. The television report shall be submitted to the Department of Public Works for assessment. 10, the proposed stormwater system and connection to the drain line shall be inspected with television post-development. Television report shall be submitted to the Department of Public Works for assessment. 11, the City of Quincy and/or its designated representative shall observe construction of the stormwater management system at the following times: upon completion of excavation, upon completion of chamber and crushed stone installation, and prior to backfill. The applicant shall provide at least 72 hours notice for said inspections. 12, prior to the issuance of an occupancy permit, the applicant shall submit an operation and maintenance plan for the project stormwater system, which shall include the following: stormwater management system owner, the party or parties responsible for operation and maintenance, including how future property owners will be notified of the presence of the stormwater management system and the requirement for proper operation and maintenance. A plan showing snow storage areas and the location of all stormwater BMPs in each treatment train along with the discharge points. An estimated operation and maintenance budget, snow management and identification of any limitation of the use of salt and/or de-icing chemicals. Inspections shall be conducted by a civil engineer or environmental scientist. Records of inspections and maintenance shall be up to date and available for review and inspection. The maintenance plan shall be recorded at the Norfolk County Registry of Deeds. Special condition 13, the applicant shall submit an illicit compliance statement to the engineering department prior to the discharge of any stormwater to post-construction BMPs. 14, the applicant shall consult with the Quincy Health Department on noise mitigation measures for construction-related noise-generating activities to comply with local and state regulations. 15, the applicant shall submit a written rodent control plan to the Quincy Health Department for review and approval prior to any site activity. Said plan must be designed for the duration of the project and include at minimum the following: name and contact information of a licensed pest control operator to be retained by the project proponent for the duration of the project. Scope of the proposed plan for the control of rodents, including number, location, and monitoring frequency of bait stations, as well as the anticipated length of service. 16, The applicant shall develop and submit a written dust control plan to the Quincy Health Department for review and approval prior to any site activity. Said dust control plan is to be implemented during any site activities to ensure compliance with state air quality regulations. 17. Applicant shall install stone or concrete survey monuments to delineate the public right-of-way. The monuments shall be set by a professional land surveyor. 18, upon completion of construction, the applicant shall submit a report including certified as-built plan from a professional engineer or surveyor certifying that the stormwater management system has been constructed in accordance with the approved plans. Report should include a certification that the excavations of the proposed system were inspected prior to backfilling. Applicant shall also provide to the city engineer the digital file as-built plan showing all utilities, building footprints, reference bounds, and benchmarks defining the total site, facilities, and rights-of-way, along with the AutoCAD file. The as-built plan shall be in Mass State Plan Coordinate System. The plan should be stamped and signed by a professional land surveyor or professional engineer. Almost there. Prior to the issuance, number 19, prior to the issuance of a certificate of occupancy, a proposed project, the applicant shall submit a final building signage package to the planning department for administrative review and approval by the planning director. The submittal shall identify the location, design, and installation of all signs associated with the proposed project and identify any differences from the building signage plans included in the record plans. To the extent the applicant has not yet determined final tenant or other signage at the time of an occupancy permit is granted, such tenants shall be responsible for submitting a proposed retail signage application to the planning department for review and approval prior to the submission of a building permit application. 20, upon completion of the project, the applicant shall submit a stamped affidavit from a registered professional engineer that all utilities, water, sewer, and drain are constructed as designed and no illicit connections are found on the completed project site. That would conclude the department's recommendation.
Okay, great, thank you. Does anybody have any questions about that? No? Okay. Does anybody have a motion on this application?
Madam Chair, I'll make a motion. Just prior to do that, I'd just like to just say one thing to the construction team. I think it's gonna be a great project, but when you guys are considering to hire some people from the city of Quincy, that'd be good. There's a lot of men and women in the city that would love to work on this project. It's really gonna change that corner of the road coming up, so please consider a contractor that can hire the men and women in the city of Quincy. That being said, I'd like to make a motion that we accept the 20 special conditions that Mr. Stevens just read, and that we approve this.
Okay. Is there a second to that?
I'll make that second.
Okay, so that was Member Kelly and Member Foley. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? None. So that is unanimous.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Thank
members of
you.
the board. Appreciate it.
Good luck with this. Thank you.
All right, so the next item on the agenda is a new public hearing for 10 Independence Avenue, Planning Board Case number 2024-13. This public hearing shall be conducted to review the application of Marina Bay Management Services LLC, 500 Victory Road, North Quincy, Mass. 02171 for site plan review under Quincy zoning ordinance Title 17, Section 9.5.1 site plan review, and special permit under Section 5.1.17 parking waiver. The applicant proposes the replacement of the existing auto body shop with a 4-story, 9-unit condominium building and 18 parking spaces. The proposal will also include structured exterior space and amenity space for the residents, along with professionally designed drainage controls and landscaping. The property contains 10,973 square feet of land and is located at 10 Independence Avenue. The subject property is located within a Business A zoning district and shown on Assessor's Map 3033, lots 33A. Good evening.
Good evening. And 1 second. Good evening. My name is Jeff Toccio. I represent Marina Bay Management. With me is Tom O'Connell, who's with the client group. Also, Gabe Crocker and Josh Green are here. They're from Crocker Design. We've got 10 Independence Avenue before you folks this evening, and we've got it up. What I'll do first, just give you an idea of what we're looking at. We're looking at the property which is to the south on the point, basically where the arrow is, 10 Independence. It's at Abigail Adams Square, in between Independence Avenue, which would be on the left, also Franklin Street, which is on the right. It's currently has a garage that's been there since 1947, non-conforming with respect to use, non-conforming with respect to dimensional, and it is in use today. It's got an automotive use. It was historically a Shell station. It had 2 islands. It serviced about 8 cars at the pumps, and it's got 3 roll-up doors that are there. It's in Business A, and the proposal this evening is for a multifamily residential, which is why we've got the special permit 3.1.4. We've also got the parking waiver, which you're asking for, and then primarily we're looking at site plan review. We're proposing a 9-unit, 18-bedroom residential building with 18 on-site parking spaces that are on the surface. It was here before. I know that another applicant had put it in before you folks, and we actually came in and we withdrew that. We were contacted by the current applicant, which is Peter O'Connell of Marina Bay, and he asked us to, in effect, withdraw it and then go back to redesigning the project. There's been a history of changes, some evolution in response to some of the neighborhood meetings. The prior team did have some neighborhood meetings, took back various comments. There have been some changes that I'll go through real quickly. And then also, when we had it and we filed, we've met with planning. I had comments from traffic, from engineering. So we've been in a position where we're pulling the information and really working to improve, to make different changes. We had a neighborhood meeting, which was last week at McKay's, which is up, that'll basically be at 2 o'clock, let's say, at the corner of Bradford and then also Franklin. And that was hosted by Councilors Devine and Ash, and we thank them for that. It was great. We took away a lot of various comments. I think we understand some of the pressure points, the questions. And what I did for this evening is a little bit of the presentation is designed to answer some of those questions. What's interesting, primary when we come in here, is that Mr. Crocker is the new engineering team. So there was a prior engineering team, and we just recognized some changes that could be made that would allow for the project to move better, just in a better position. Changes did occur, and I'll just say generally, materials have changed, and I'll go through some of that in some detail. Also, exterior, we made a lot of improvements to where the parking is. We made improvements to the back of house in how the property actually interacts between the back lot and then some of the common areas which are on the first floor of the property. Moreover, what I'll do is I'll be showing you folks that the front door was previously proposed to be on Independence Avenue. And there were questions about whether we could line that up to make it more centralized at the apex of the intersection. And I do have some plans that I'll show that to you, and I'll show you what the effect is. And then lastly, in a general sense, the prior proposal had a basement in it. And it's interesting when you look at the site, you look at where the groundwater readings were and the interaction of what the proposed basement was with respect to where the slab was for the groundwater. And then also this is a building with an elevator, and there's a lot of mechanicals that go below the slab in the basement. So the decision was made, it was actually pretty easy. We were having a little bit of a tough time with things, and Mr. O'Connell said, do away with the basement. And that solved a lot of problems for us. And I'll go through some of that as well. Looking at the exhibit that I've got, does Mr. Stevens, do we think this works on that, or?
Power on the side,
Or on the side?
it's green.
All right, so taking the battery door off is not gonna help. And is it this one, is it that one? I'm gonna ask Mr. Crocker to figure it out while I do it, and I just, please.
Joe's doing
Joe,
it.
thank you very much. The first one, if we could go back to the other one, please. It wasn't going ahead. So we'll start with the neighborhood. I'm not going to assume that everyone, of course you all know this, we all know this. I'm not going to assume that you do. Real quickly, again, the property is to the south, it's where the arrow is. It's basically the point, the apex of what we're looking at for the corner of the five-way intersection, which is known as Abigail Adams Square. If we turn around and start going up to, let's say, 10 o'clock, you can see that white structure with the rubber roof around it. That's one Independence. So that's Sweeney's funeral home. And then if we continue, we go to 12, we're looking at the John Quincy Adams House, and then the John Adams House above that, that's part of the Birthplace Park Service Properties. Coming back, swinging through about, let's say, 2 o'clock, we've got McKay's at 144, 150, which is Franklin Street. And then finally, about 3 o'clock is, we've got a very large, tall Queen Anne, which is at 160 Franklin Street. That's a residential use. The reason that we put this up, and I wish this pointer worked, was I wanted to emphasize, one, the geometry of the intersection. It's classic, right? This doesn't adhere to any modern requirements with respect to how someone would want to lay out an intersection, but it is what it is. And this is kind of grown up in the neighborhood, and it's gone forward. The neighborhood consists of a mix of residential structures and then other commercial structures. And again, everything has its place in time. If I look at one, Independence, that's a Queen Anne architecture, and that was built in the 1890s. Sometime subsequent, they put the funeral home around it, and that's what you see today. That today, the concept of legally non-conforming uses and then also dimensional criteria, that is legally non-conforming with respect to setbacks on dimensions and then also the use. But again, it's part of the neighborhood, it's a valued piece of the community, but it is what it is, and it kind of defines what this intersection consists of. If we look at the Adams houses, we're looking at the closest one, the John Quincy Adams. That's classified as a colonial federal, and you'll remember if you go there, the front door is literally on the sidewalk. There's a big break in the stone wall, which is really unfortunate. Obviously, that was nothing that was original, but it's been there. But that's got a zero setback from the property. We go across to McKay's, who was fine enough to host the event for us last week. When we were there, we just could point out very easily, zero setbacks. So that's non-conforming with respect to dimensions. Similar with 160 Franklin Street, that's non-conforming. And then finally, if we can go to the next one, Joe, the property that we're talking about today, it's the Quincy Auto Tech. And I mentioned before, it is non-conforming in so many aspects. The back of that actually conforms with the shape, the back property line conforms with the shape of the building. If it's got a 1 foot setback, that's about it. But it's a product of its time. They divided it around the building. Again, that was put in 1947. And it's also today non-conforming with respect to use. But it's legal, but that is what people see when they actually go there. And when you're looking at the property, that's what you wind up seeing. It has 4 curb cuts, and I think it's very interesting to note that the existing condition has, right up front in front of you, that white minivan, that's an actual curb cut. So that was something that was in use certainly when it was the gas station. Also, if you look at where the 2 crosswalks hit over on the Franklin Street side, the curb cut literally opens directly into the curb openings. All very bad, the design's really, really horrible. The other 2 curb cuts, which are on the side, they're a little further back, but they're rather close up to the intersection. So from a queuing standpoint, et cetera, it's really not a good condition, not a good condition. The other piece that I'd like to talk about this, take a look at what it looks like. Whether cars are there or not depends on where somebody parks them. It's got no defined parking, so it's basically an expanse of, I think it's 8,800 square feet of pavement. It's got no on-site drainage whatsoever. Rain hits it, it just goes into the street. The building's about 2,300 square feet in size, and it also has, if you take a look on the left on the Franklin Street side, it's got an open dumpster, which is there. It's always been there as far as I can remember. And in 2021, it was actually cited by the city for storage of outdoor junk. So it had to go in under the ordinances to basically clean the place up. Joe, if I could go to the next one, please. The top is a view that's next to the John Quincy Adams House coming south down Franklin Street. And when you enter this intersection, that's your focal point. So I'm going to suggest, you may differ, it's an obsolete use. It really degrades the intersection. It really degrades a lot of the surrounding properties around it. Mr. Sweeney's funeral home is behind the tree, which is over there on the right. Again, beautiful Queen Anne architecture. It's got the spire. It's just got so many nice properties that are here that this is far below the standard of what is supported by the neighborhood. And I'd suggest that the intersection, the neighborhood deserves a lot better. This is a situation where you've got Mr. O'Connell, private developer, looking to invest private dollars in this square, which I would suggest is a great opportunity. And what he seeks to do is shown below. What we've done is, it's basically the rendering, which is dropped down. Unfortunately, the detail of the renderings aren't super great. It's a fact. I wish it was, we could get some that were better in the time. But I've got one which I can show you a little later. What we're looking at, again, is going to be 9 units. It consists of a ground floor, which is common area, elevator bank, package delivery. It's got some shared space for the residents, et cetera. And again, a lobby for all the mail, package deliveries, things of that nature. If you go up one, it's got the first residential floor. It is looking at basically 3 units there, about 1,300 square feet each. And then as you successively go up, the floor plates are identical. So it's 3 units, and they're 2-bedroom units, and they're 1,300 square feet each. I will mention that the concept is for condominium use, and that was something that came early. I know that the prior developer had proposed apartments, and one of the questions was whether it could be something that would be condominium ownership. Thinking being that typically condominiums where they're owner occupied, it's a lot easier to put together the condominium association and this pride of ownership, and that would result in maintaining what would be high quality building as it goes forward. I believe that the size of this balances the intersection. I'm going to suggest, after many years of kind of working with Mass DOT on intersections like this, that over time, gateway intersections such as this wind up getting upgrades, improvements with respect to some of their geometry. And ultimately, this is an intersection that I believe that supports the building that is proposed, which is here. When you come down Franklin, we see this as a continuation of the investment that is in the neighborhood. You'll know that 109 Franklin Dunkin' Donuts recently, there were kind of the land swaps purchases to upgrade that entire property. Also 106 to 108 Franklin is 6 residential, I believe, with 3 commercial, and that's tucked in over off, I think, North Payne. But you're, I won't say lucky, but I think Quincy's success in the neighborhoods is that it's a really well-run place. It's a great place to live. It's a great place for residential occupants. And the proof's in the pudding, because private money has been coming in and investing leading up to this intersection. Mr. O'Connell sees this as the next step, and frankly, a huge step, because instead of just infilling on the way to the intersection, he does not like that garage, right? I don't know if you know him. He's a local gentleman. Things like this get his interest, and it's something he's got to deal with. This is an opportunity to have somebody invest private money in a building going forward that is going to be able to hopefully replace that garage that exists there today. Joe, if we go to the next one. This is, there's nothing around it. It looks like it was plopped down in a desert or something, so please, please overlook that. Please overlook the BMW on Franklin Street, which is driving on the wrong side of the road. What else? This is an earlier iteration that I had made up to show what were some choices on what the building would look like. So because it's early, I can tell you that the street trees are not shown, the proper sidewalk is not shown. Railings, there's some other elements to this, a little fancy. We've got to speak with Historic, and we already have some feedback, so there are some elements to this from an aesthetic point of view that aren't exactly straight on, but the building is. And the piece of the building that I would point out that is important from my perspective, first of all, you'll see where the front door is now, so it's under where it says, my eyes are no good, it might say 10 Independence. That's where the front door is now. And the question was, when you're approaching this intersection, can you have the front door be, where it kind of lines up instead of having it was formerly on the side where you can see a secondary egress door, which is on Independence Avenue. So that was put in. There were comments that it came up and hugged up towards the corner a little too much. So what we did was we cantilevered the building above that. So we were able to recess the front door by over 5 feet, which allows for the landscape architect to have plantings put in. It also just kind of gives more airiness and gives more sight lines between Franklin and also Independence. You'll notice that it's gray. Earlier iterations of the building were a brick. We went in, we saw some of the public hearings before, and one of the things I heard was, it just looks like a wall. So what we did was we took a look at it. I looked at the other properties. I mean, we're looking at all the other, the Queen Anne's, they were all clapboarded. And obviously, the Adams houses, in particular, the John Quincy Adams. I like that kind of putty-ish with the cream, et cetera. So what we did was we came up with a color palette on a hardy board. So it's basically cementatious siding, so it looks just like wood. It wears like iron. It lasts a long time. It holds paint great. And it's just really durable. It looks nice. So this has the hardy board planking, which is for the clapboards. As you start to move up, you can see the bays. There are actual bays. There's a, I should also mention, the style of this, because of the roof, it's a Second Empire, so it's called a mansard roof. There are a few of these in the neighborhood up on North Payne, north of North Payne, where there's a coffee shop on the corner. The building that's attached to that is an actual 1890 Second Empire, and that's got bays, which face over onto North Payne Street. So we're able to replicate those. What they do is they give texture, they give interest, they're in different colors. So instead of having something which is, a vanilla box that goes up without features, this place actually has, some articulation. Modern buildings that you see now have a lot of striping with gray vertical, and they change different materials. That's trying to achieve the same thing, but with a more contemporary style. This allows, and it's been around, forever and a day, it allows for vertical interest and texture, and it's more of a traditional architectural style. So the building goes up. You'll notice that from the ground floor up to the tablature, which is the heavy, the heavy beginning of the roof, or what people would say, oh, that's like the gutter line. Everything you'll notice with the windows, all the fenestration, it's all a white, or it's either going to be a white, it's going to be a cream. It's basically going to match what that lighter color is. And what that does is that, I won't say it tricks the eye, but it establishes a certain unification for this building up to that heavy tablature, that heavy, heavy line. That heavy line is like 35 feet above the street. And that's very intentional, because when you look at this, your eye goes boom to that, and then above that is basically laid out as a mansard roof. There is a level, a third level of 3 units, which are up there, which are the same as the preceding floors. So that's a livable floor. But the beauty of a mansard roof is you're allowed to enclose livable space within a roof line or an attic. You'll notice that all of a sudden the fenestration changes. We don't have the light windows anymore. We've got the darker, the aluminum, et cetera, so that they, in effect, it's a part of, kind of tricking the eye. They blend in visually up into the roof so that it's able to be able to lay the building out in a nice style with, various architectural components that allow for a building to go in and be able to support that level, but I'll say camouflaged within the mansard roof. The height of this, as I said, like 35 feet to the tablature. It's 4410, just that top, that light white band. So 4410 is where this winds up hitting when we take a look at it. We can go to the next one, Joe, please. Spinning around, taking a look at how the property lays out. The north, or the intersection, Abigail Adams Square, is right up top of up top. You can kind of see this thing. It's a cone-shaped, super irregular shape. But it was really good in 1947. Everyone's coming back from the war, and people bought cars. They needed to drive places. This really worked out well back in the time to be able to get cars in and out of those pump islands. Nowadays, it causes real issues with respect to the usability of the parcel, which we've had to work on very hard work in order to get this to work, to meet the various criteria that you folks are going to want to look at for your site plan review. What we've got out, just building is up at the top. You can see the grade. That's in effect the first floor. And you can see, if I take a look, a lobby, common room, got storage, mechanical. Because we don't have the basement, we have to have mechanicals. So those have to be on the ground level. Package delivery, the elevator room, and then we've got kind of a public gym, which is stuffed over next to the stairwell. I will mention some of the early iterations of this plan had some component of residential on the first floor. That wasn't super well received. No one wants to walk by, look in, see people. I don't think, frankly, I wouldn't want to live there and look out and wave to my neighbors waiting at the crosswalk. But one of the comments early on was, can you restrict, the residential, get it up? The other thing was apparent very early on that thoughts of using this first floor for commercial use as a mixed-use residential really were highly problematic because of the need to get vehicles off the street and not have anything out on the street parking. That was something that was a very early message, and a lot of the design followed to be able to capture all of the parking on site. And this basically achieves that. Talking about the parking first, as I said, it's got 9 units, 18 bedrooms. This provides 18 parking spaces, all conforming with respect to size. The aisle conforms with respect to the requirements. We actually received excellent comments coming back from traffic engineering, a lot of comments. And we went through the iterations. You enter on the Independence Ave side, and then you exit on the Franklin Street side. It fits emergency vehicles, it fits FedEx trucks, it fits, Amazon deliveries. And that was one of the things that we worked with planning on, was that earlier iterations really they weren't thought through with respect to I call it the back of house. And that has to do with, if you take a look at that turquoise car, see the line behind that? The line is where that first residential floor starts. So this parks under a lip of the building, so it's semi-enclosed. Starting from the right on the Independence Ave side, we were able to site the bicycle racks, all that, tuck it in much more efficiently. That was a parking space. Obviously, you wouldn't want to use that space and be backing directly into the the mouth of the inlet, et cetera. So we made a lot of changes. You've got the spaces that start to align until you get down to, there was a change in the handicap because we needed to have all the van space, which is now incorporated. And then while we were there in putting that in, planning suggested that we make really good changes with respect to the geometry to allow for more size, larger door, enclosed trash in a better way, so that people moving in, you gotta move in a, mattress.com or whatnot, they actually can get into the place. You move a sofa in there, there's actually room. Everything would be kind of directed towards having that spot where the Amazon can stop. They can run in. We've got the package delivery room, which is right there. So a lot of thought has been put into this to make that back of house work. You can see there's a dog park, which is where the bump out is today for the garage. And then we've got, some planted areas which are on both Independence and then also on Franklin Street. The street trees that are shown are columnar type of red maples, so trees that in effect don't spread when they grow, but they have a nice upright shape to them. We've got boxwood, dogwood. I know there's various yews, London plane. We anticipate that we will get comments, whether it's from you folks, whether it's from engineering with respect to proximity to the street. There are many options that we can put together. Our landscape architect decided that these were the best for this situation, but again, we're open-minded for that. Looking at the sidewalk, this is a big change for this plan, also a big change for this intersection. That is poured concrete sidewalk, but you'll notice the red, that's a 2-foot brick pavers strip, which is incorporated, and then we're able to drop the tree wells into that. And then, of course, it's got vertical granite curb, which is all the way around. The big change with respect to the sidewalk aesthetic is that if you take a look from School Street and then go down to Water Street, if you look at the sidewalks, you'll notice the 2-foot brick strips. So back in the day when the city was doing work, people were doing things, they'd say, it's time to replace the sidewalk, and the city would say, that's great, don't forget the brick strip. And you can see that, so it comes all the way down to Water, it goes a little further towards Nam the Taylor, and then it just dies, and it turns back into, just, concrete. For whatever reason, that standard kind of disappeared. One of the things that, Mr. O'Connell expressed an interest in, you talked of planning, there was, no one's going to say that's not a good idea, but what it does is it begins to establish a design aesthetic for the public spaces, for this intersection, thinking again that at some point, on some level, there's going to be a push within the city to say, great neighborhood, but that intersection doesn't do it justice, and there's an opportunity to do some upgrades here. So we would suggest that the infusion of public money on one of the corners is a good start, and I think it's I think it's fitting for this. I'll also say that being a condominium building, it's going to be for sale condominiums. So the nicer it looks, the nicer environment that it's got, it's just all, it's a virtuous cycle with respect to what you want for the aesthetic and just the quality of what you're putting together. We can go to, now, just to make sure I get everything I did. Super. Joe, if we could go to the next one, please. This is an exemplar floor plan. So one, the first residential floor, the second one, the third one, they in effect all look the same. The central core is the elevator. You see the same stairs, the emergency stairs, et cetera. So again, they're 2 bedrooms and they're about 1,300 square feet. One might be 13, another might be 1297. But the way that they all shake down is they hit a Goldilocks, sweet spot, if you will, on what these folks are kind of hearing that people are looking for when they're actually buying condominiums in this type of area. And when I say this type of area, you folks all know it, it's T-stations right up Independence Avenue, the bus stops right outside. It's what's happening these days. You know, real estate's very expensive to buy. We've got younger generations that are coming up, and there's work from home. Not a lot of people necessarily have multiple vehicles or even a vehicle. It's interesting. So we've got a real transition to, you know, mass transit. We do have the 1 car per bedroom, so this place is very amply parked. But the reality is that, you know, one of the attractions here is the proximity of the, you know, the public transportation that's available in town. I'm going to go to the next one, Joe, please. The height. This is one of the issues that was comments from neighbors originally, and it's something that it's the same height that we're looking at in here. So it's something that we looked at. People said, can you make it a little shorter? Can you do something different with it? The reality that I'm dealing with is I need, in order to make this financially viable and to create a residential building as opposed to just selling or renting to another garage, is I need to get the 9 units. That's a financial reality that I'm dealing with. We also did away with the basement, et cetera. So we're making commitments with respect to the sidewalk, et cetera, all plus. One of the things that I need to do in order to make the economics work is to have the 3 layers of the residential. So I want to be real upfront with you on that. And some of the comments, when I ask people and I say, well, what's wrong with you know, having the camouflaged up in the top? And people look at the Adams houses and they say, look how big that is. This is bigger than everything. And the answer that my response, it's bigger than what you used to, which is a 1-story garage. It's bigger than McKay's and that whole block. Absolutely, they are what they are. But if I look at the other properties that are direct abutters in that intersection, like go there, walk around, absolutely beautiful 160 Franklin Street, multifamily home. It's got a cupola, and height-wise, 39.7 is the height of that building. 39.7, it shows on the Franklin Street side as 1, 2, 3 levels, but actually if you go to Bradford, you go on to the east side of the house, there's like a half level that's there. Pre-existing non-conforming, it's great. I'm absolutely positive it's a great place to live because the place is gorgeous. But it is what it is. This is, you know, how many feet? Someone help me with the math. Is it 5, 3, help? 5?
Foot.
All right, we're 5 feet taller than that. And that's been there since 1890 without, you know, life's good. If you live there, successive generations, the proof's in the pudding on that. It's basically 5 feet, I think 3 inches shorter than what is proposed. If we go the other way over onto one Independence, we look at the funeral home. We picked up 2 different heights because we got 3811 to the main ridge of the roof, and then we've got, you know, over 42 feet. There's an absolute beautiful turret defines that property. But we're like, you know, I think we're 2-3 feet off of what you're looking at there. So they establish a certain mass in that intersection that we don't believe we are inconsistent with. And the quality of the construction that we're looking at a Victorian-style architecture. The Queen Anne's on either side are both Victorian-style architecture as well. There's other, you know, we're a Second Empire. There's other Second Empire in the neighborhood. There's a beautiful Second Empire when you go up Penn's Hill. We believe that this stands well, stands proudly, and is a property that can properly anchor this other southern arm of the intersection. If I go to the next one, please, Joe. You've seen this before. Just the points that I want to make on this. You'll remember that there were 4 curb cuts currently that exists. What we propose to come through, if you look on Independence, we've only got 1 on Independence Ave, and that's 88 feet. from the intersection, 88 feet. It's important to site curb openings further away from intersections for vehicle queues, for interaction issues. Over similarly on Franklin Street, we're 105 feet away from the intersection. So we've got pluses that exist there. What's interesting, when you take a look at this, some of the questions were with the neighbor meeting, and we hear this all the time. I know you folks hear it all the time. Oh my God, the traffic from this is going to be really bad. This is going to be a lot of traffic. If you look at the traffic report, I think it's 4 vehicle trips in the AM peak hour, 4 vehicle trips, and in the PM peak hour, it's 7 vehicle trips. I think the conclusion was, I might be wrong, but it was no impact. I think that the impact was 0.25? 0.2 seconds difference in, wait times, et cetera. And we're not surprised. These residential uses are absolutely negligible. So I'm happy. At the neighbor meeting, I said, don't worry, believe me, it's going to be nothing. So I went and looked it up, and sure enough, I can now give you some articulation of what that is. The numbers are really low. The intersection, I should also tell you folks, it's about 16,000 vehicle trips per day in the entire intersection. That's not a high number. People, for some reason, perceive it as high, and I believe that has to do with just the geometry with the signalized intersection. But overall, levels of service are actually very good. There's no impact on levels of service whatsoever from 9 residential units. And if you go through, you can see that when you take a look at the study that we've got. The next, if I may, Joe, the next question was, what about water? Because there are puddles that currently are there in the intersection. Some of the neighbors said that they've got water that's in their basements, and they had a concern that this would contribute to that. And I explained it without having any drawings, et cetera, just kind of very, very layman based. But what I wanted to do this evening is to actually bring in the plan and go through, what that is. You folks have seen, Coltech infiltration chambers, et cetera. The people watching at home, I don't think a lot of them have. What's interesting about this today is if you go there, there's 8,800 square feet, give or take, just of pavement without any drainage. Rain hits it, it goes. There's nowhere for it to go other than on the surface to go into the street. Add to that number the impervious, 2,300 square foot building, and again, no on-site drainage. And you are looking at an absolute, effective water hits, and it just sheds off and it goes into the street. From there, it goes all different bad places. The engineers in this instance, the design reduces the impervious area from the existing condition. Under the stormwater regs, that's great, right? It's better for a currently disturbed and developed site. And what they do is they say, you've got to meet that, they meet that. What they have done is they have designed this drainage system as if it was brand new construction. Again, sure, it's great, it's a big plus that it's got less impervious, but they took the prior drainage design, they kind of blew it up, and they went back in, and this is a vast improvement of what you got. The infiltration, just so folks know, you can see the arms inside that kind of go in. Those are drainage manholes, so rainwater is directed into those. The rainwater goes in underground into these systems, and the systems hold the water, they delay it. I think it's like a 72-hour cycle on these. And what they do is, while they hold it, they start to release little bits into the ground, and then eventually, over that 72-hour period, it's basically taken in. So instead of being a rain event, which happens real quick, it's stretched and stretched and stretched. And that's how modern engineering controls drainage. All of that is set up in this design. Actually, it was reviewed by City of Quincy Engineering, and, you know, it was, oh, we saw the other one, this is bigger, it's different, it's better. And the answer to those is yes, yes, yes. This will absolutely vastly improve the current condition that's out there. The other thing is, again, you'll remember I said we don't have a basement. So by not going down, not getting down near the groundwater, et cetera, you know, we just kind of take all of that off the table. So from a neighbor perspective, someone who's looking at it, I can point to all of those elements to show you that this is not going to cause any flooding or any increases in any of that. Another woman thought that every unit that's added, like if you take a shower or a bath or you do laundry, that wastewater contributed to drainage problems in the road and all that. So we had a discussion on the separation of wastewater streams from drainage, et cetera. But it was a good opportunity just to explain and have the counselors ask questions, have the neighbors ask questions. And I just wanted to make sure that those were something that I brought up. Anything else that you think anything? So I think the last one, Joe, is just, that's, you saw that before, which was stacked with the existing condition. Honestly, when I was in my office, I thought, well, I'm gonna close showing the gas station now, because, you know, it's just, it is what it is. And I didn't do that because everyone knows. Nobody at the neighborhood meeting said, we love that gas station. No one does. I think everyone, you know, understands that modernizing the area, having private investments, all a plus. The stakeholder who's involved now has a long history in the city of Quincy, and I think it's quite a good opportunity that it's somebody who is looking to do something with this level of detail and design. Coming down, so the John Quincy Adams house will be to your right, McKay's will be to your left. As you enter, going south, coming down Franklin Street, this is what you could see. The trees aren't here, so shame on me, picture beautiful trees. The other thing is, you'll see these utility poles. They are what they are. They're really unsightly. We are working, or Mr. Crocker is working with the utility providers to come up with a plan. The furthest one, which is down near the liquor store, that is where the curb opening will be. So that's going to be moved back off of the center of the curb opening. But the desire is to see if we can get either new poles placed better, or if possible, if we could work to put something underground as part of a conduit. Again, this is one of those situations where the intersection is ripe for a refresh, and it's going to be a question of what plans there are and, you know, what we can do so that we're not duplicating work. If we were to move poles and then all of a sudden in 3 years someone comes in and says, oh, the poles have to be moved here or there, it's just kind of a waste of resources. If there was a way to see if there was a way to, you know, to use those resources towards a more common aesthetic, I would suggest that taking those poles and all of those lines won't only make this building more attractive, it's going to make the entire intersection more attractive. And if that can start a municipal trend here, whether it's the utility provider or, you know, however it's done, if things could be put underground, not even this, but just think of the Adams birthplace. You know, it would be such a plus if this was the ignition to be able to get people working to be able to start to improve the intersection. Again, the houses around it are beautiful. They're absolutely magnificent. You know, it's a great spot in town. The intersection can do better. I think it should do better. Hopefully, I've gone through it. I've explained this the best that I can. I know it took a long time, but there's a little bit of history, so I wanted to go back through it. I can answer any questions that you folks have if that's.
let's see, does anybody have any questions right now?
You actually answered my question about the utility poles, because some of the pictures were showing no utility poles, and then we're showing. So it's almost like wishful thinking. You mentioned in your past experience that you've seen the state and the municipalities come in and saying, okay, it's time for a refresh. I agree with you. I think it is time for a refresh there. I think that, I think it's beautiful. I gotta tell you, I'm really happily surprised, because when I first saw this, when it was proposed a while ago,
Yeah.
I was thinking, it's a duck, it's a duck, it's a duck, it doesn't really change much. This has changed, in my eyes, tremendously. I think it's really good looking, except for that utility pole. Sorry.
Yeah, no, and I want to be really upfront, like, you don't see the trees, they would really
Yeah,
dress it up.
yeah.
If I was a more experienced lawyer, I would have made sure those trees were there.
And I think the cantilever,
Yeah.
what Arthur put in there with the cantilever, that's nice, that's a really nice.
Yeah, and I
touch.
should say Arthur and Alita are not here this evening, but, they've made all of these, changes up to the minute. I didn't have time to have the renders put all the trees there. And the trees also hide the building a little
Yeah.
bit, so
Well,
this,
it takes away that, I think, at least looking at it, it takes away that height thing, because of the cantilever. I like it, I like the looks of
and
it, I
there's
think.
really not a lot of brick. There are some brick faces here and there, but we really went with, like, take a look at 160 Franklin. I mean, it's really attractive, but, the siding, the residential look, this goes a lot more residential. I think the brick gave more of an institutional feel.
And also, it says trash recycling, so is that where the dumpster is gonna be? Is that, you're gonna put a dumpster back there?
Yep, so that's enclosed. I kind of glossed over that a little bit. It's on the Franklin side, but it's all enclosed. It's in its own area. Yep, thank you very much, Joe. See those black, I'll point.
Oh, yeah, so that's where the dumps, now, and I guess the next question would be like, snow, of course, they'd probably truck it out of there or something?
Yeah, if
you get
it, so we're asked that all the time, for commercial projects, we wind up having, dedicated snow storage areas. On residential projects of this size, not big ones, we'll usually have, things they can push it around, push it through, and then get rid. At a certain level, there's too much snow and it winds up, getting trucked out. Because this is going to be a condominium association, you're actually going to have owners with budgets for snow removal, with, certain demands. And in our experience, the ownership on projects of this size works really well, as opposed to some projects are too small to have like on-site property managers, et cetera. So this winds up, it winds up being in a good spot. Another reason why they're talking about expensive plantings, they're expecting, they're gonna have a landscape budget. Someone's gonna have to mow that, et cetera, but the snow removal is part of
And
that.
just one other point that I saw in your drawings, you had a lot of downlighting coming from the building itself. Will there be, and of course the neighbors it affects them the most, obviously, if there's
Yep.
any type of uplighting or, No?
Right, no, so, we've got kind of wall packs on the back, because it's so small and because it's so proximate.
Yeah.
We'll have some lighting underneath, and then wall packs will be bright enough to just get the back edge of those cars. The liquor store is the abutter behind, so there's no residential, direct down here to the south, other than you get past the liquor store, and then you get past their loading docks, et cetera. The front, we took off lights. The original design had, I don't know if they were Art Deco, but they didn't match the building. They were odd. And I think planning said something like, you better get rid of those lights.
were they that blunt? Were they?
Yeah, no, but I saw them, they were straight, they were a different color. I don't know, someone had a lighting package that they plugged in, but lights, things of that nature, we have to go to historic. So I'm not sweating the details, because they're going to look at it and they're going to have a lot to say. And, I defer, they're gonna know, what lighting's appropriate for this.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Madam Chair, I have a
Kelly?
few
Yes.
questions, yeah, so it definitely is a nicer building than the first building.
Thank you.
But, you guys are using every square inch of that lot. I didn't even see how you're gonna do the backside of, like, put up the hardy board on the backside of the building. I mean, you're right up against the property line.
Oh.
Is the abutter gonna let you come in there and use their property to put that in?
The backside, no, so maybe I didn't say it right. So I'm gonna point to the backside of the building. Here.
That's where you are?
Yeah.
So that doesn't cantilever over the parking lot? Okay, I misunderstood.
That, I misspoke. When I said cantilever, I should have, yeah. So cantilever's over this,
Okay,
and then, so this winds up being open. We had a,
I got you.
we had a fence which was proposed back there. Because I was thinking, you know, fence is always a hard barrier. We got feedback, that there was actually a preference that there be live plantings. So we changed so that we wound up, putting all of that, in.
Okay, and I know you mentioned the snow removal, but where are you gonna push the snow to? There's nowhere to push the snow. You can't push it out into the street. There's nowhere to store snow. Nowhere.
We've got edges for the snow that we're getting, we've got edges that it can go to. And then once it gets to a certain point, once it gets to a certain point,
Every one of those is a parking spot. So if you have a car there, there's nowhere to put any snow. That's just
It's
my
a-
opinion.
yeah, so it's, okay. We don't, well, first of all, we haven't had a whole lot of snow in a whole lot of years.
Yeah, don't hold your breath.
I know, no kidding, I know, that's what I said to Mike. It works, we've never had a problem with the snow removal. I mean, just like right now with, you know, that undefined what's there. They go up, they push it around, they put it in rows, they put it where it can go. In this instance, you're going to wind up with 9 families that are saying, I want my parking space, I want this, get the snowplow guys. So you've got, you know, it's good to say, keep your eye on it, you gotta make sure that it works. But the bottom line on this is you're gonna have 9 families who are all the bosses saying, get the snow out of there, and it'll wind up working. If it has to be pushed where, you know, the bikes are, et cetera, there are plenty of places that it can go. Yeah, we don't, on something like this, I didn't think that was either be a question, because we usually have larger format where that's an issue. On small residential properties like this, we just
So
don't.
regardless that it's not going to the back, but then in the front of the building where you're right on the main intersection, that is gonna be a problem when you go to build it, right? Because you're gonna have to shut down the street to do some of that,
Yeah, just like,
right?
yeah, I mean, it happens everywhere, just
No,
like
I
when
know.
all the other
I'm
properties.
just making sure that.
Yeah, no different than other properties within 50 feet that are now done, and they look great, and, you know, people are happy. It'll basically be the same thing. We don't want to be treated any different than anyone else. But scaffolding, yeah, that's how, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, you know, what is there now today is so different, right? So it's different, you know, from an apples to oranges. It is. It's one story. It's all the way back. Some of the early iterations, people were saying, well, can we put the parking up front? Can we? So a lot of thought was into how we laid this out. And then also, you know, folks said, we can't have any on-street parking. You've got to absorb all the parking on site. So that drove a
And
lot
I
of the
know we'll
design.
hear from the neighbors in the coming
Sure.
minutes, but what was your take on it? Were they happy with the changes? Are they against it still?
I think the biggest comment that came out was that the height, by having units in the roof as opposed to just if I had a roof, that's gonna have negative connotations. I don't know how far away someone's house, like I didn't know where the people lived. You know, if you're 100 feet away and somebody lives up there, as opposed, you know, people living up in attics in this neighborhood are actually quite common. If this one, I mean, that's one of the questions. From a site plan review question, you know, I mean, that's something that I'm gonna have to go in and get findings and, you know, variance from the zoning board. But from a site plan review basis, this works. Drainage was, I think, probably the biggest concern, and traffic. And again, it's perception. It's not, it just does not show itself in the data whatsoever.
I mean, that's not gonna do anything for traffic once it's built, it's just gonna be during the construction.
Yeah, and it's, actually, I'm sure it's less than the traffic that's generated today by the garage.
And then, the only other thing I said, good luck getting those utilities moved.
Yeah, I know. Well, we're engaged,
Good luck.
I agree 100%. We have been successful in the past through perseverance. It just takes a long time, and often it comes in real late in the game, which is a problem. But
And
all we
so-
can do is the best that we can.
And one other thing that you mentioned that just
Yes.
popped in my head, you mentioned something about, have you already talked to the city about doing the sidewalk? You mentioned something about having the city do something with the sidewalk?
No, the question was whether we could continue the design aesthetic that is up between schools. So School Street, if you go up Franklin, right, you go past North Payne, you wind up hitting Water Street. In that area, as you're going further north up to School Street, when you go into the corner, it looks like this. So your eye won't notice it. You could drive by it all the time and you don't know. But if I tell you that now, if you drive out there, you'll say, huh, no kidding. It's a standard that the city held people to back in the day, and it disappeared for some reason. The question was, in this instance, whether it's something that could be restored to the design aesthetic to be able to put this in. So the city, Mr. O'Connell will buy the pavers, he'll buy the concrete, he'll buy the granite curb, he'll put all that in. So that's something that part of the process is part of the mitigation. Some people do the traffic and, maintenance fund, et cetera. This is somebody who's, some people may say, I want to write a check and you guys spend it where you want. Mr. O'Connell had an interest in, actually, taking some of the suggestions. Other properties have not done it. There's a lot of new sidewalk in this intersection that doesn't have it. So you may say, oh, that's window dressing, don't do it. I think it's nice. And it may not be in our immediate futures, but at some point, someone's gonna wanna do a project, and the city's gonna say, that's great, put in a 2-foot brick strip. And then, over the course of time, hopefully this is something that looks good.
And I know this is a small project, but I have to say it, the men and women of Quincy would love to work on any project being built in the city.
Yeah.
So when you're choosing a contractor, if it gets approved, please consider using someone that can hire the men and women in the city of Quincy. We don't like to see Rhode Island plates come into Quincy, or New Hampshire plates when they're building all these buildings. When we live here, we pay the taxes.
Well, I'm going to suggest that my client, I'm going to guess that he's lived in Quincy longer than you have.
I know he has, so,
Yeah, no, duly noted. It was one other point, excuse me, just 1 second, that just escaped me. That was a really good point that you made. It'll probably come back to me. Sorry, John.
okay, that's all I have.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Member Liuzzo, you okay?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Going through the first iteration of this project last spring, a common theme or complaint, if you will, was that the building was too tall and didn't fit on the land, as Member Kelly had suggested. And I appreciate you pointing out that, surrounding buildings that might have the same height at a certain point. I would push back on that a bit. Standing in plenty of lines at Sweeney Brothers, doesn't feel like I'm dwarfed next to that building. That setback is totally different than
Me too.
than what you're pointing out. And even 160 Franklin, again, I appreciate it might be of similar height, but what's the setback at that property off of the main street?
Yep. It's
You know.
non-conforming with respect to.
No, understood,
Bradford Street.
but it's, this project is right on the street. And I would venture to guess, I didn't go to the community meeting the other night, but I would venture to guess that the neighbors would have similar complaints, such as they did with the first project
Yeah.
about the height and the size of the project on this lot. With that, the rooftop, what's the rooftop gonna look like? Coming down Franklin Street, you're gonna have probably a
Joe,
point
can
of
we
view.
find it? Maybe, yeah, right, there you go. So that will have a centralized elevator or head house, which will be in the middle. So at some point, far enough away you'll see that there's going to be some mechanical up there. But it doesn't render because it's so centralized. So you've got, I don't know, 20, 30 feet from all directions to have it be there. So you're going to basically see that dark mansard roof.
Is that the only thing you'll see on the rooftop, or are there gonna be HVAC units or whatever have you?
Oh,
on top?
anything that's up there, MEP will be centralized.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, there may, there'll be a vent for toilets, things
Sure.
like that.
Yeah.
But, it's nothing that,
You wouldn't be able to see it from.
you're not going to see it. And, I said something in a response the other evening, and things are up there. If you get a drone, you're going to see it.
Sure, of course.
If you go over, the beloved funeral home, if you look at it, it's a rubber roof, which cuts the waste of an 1890s. But when you're on the street, it looks great, right? But, so it's not going to be anything that you're going to see. And frankly, we find that the difference between the existing condition and the proposed, like the bigger the delta, the more, oh my goodness. So it's not something which is taken in its, isolated context. If there was something, if there was a big historic house like up the street where where 106, 108 was, that comes down, that property went in, it's over 40 feet, right? It's right in there, North Main Street. There it is, it's got the commercial units down on the ground level. Everyone says, I really like that building. The broker was at the neighborhood meeting and she said, it's been received very positively. This is very similar in many respects. I mean, this is 4 feet. If you're standing down below and you can perceive 4 feet and that is a reason to deny site plan review, then, I'd suggest that's not sufficient. The other thing that is here, and I've been doing this for 36 years. I would love for this to happen because I do not like the service station that is there now. If this doesn't happen, it's going to be another service station. And I'm going to suggest that this building for the next generations and generations is going to be able to provide shelter for 9 families, especially in this economy where we've got problems with housing. And it's going to be a vast improvement over the gas station. Maybe at some point economics change.
Sure. I don't think
I don't know.
I don't think you'll find an argument that,
Yeah,
a project would dress that corner up nicely.
Yeah.
In fact, we've heard that multiple times.
Yeah,
again,
but
when the first iteration.
but from
of
an
the project-
economic standpoint,
No, I understand that
I
point.
put my cards on the table super early. And what I've not done is I didn't dance around, and I just said plainly, mansard roof, the intent is, and that's why I did all the coloring, I'm doing everything that I can from a design standpoint to camouflage it, to be able to reflect back on the clapboard and other, other architectural styles in the neighborhood. I'm doing what I can to provide a premium building that hits the economic pieces and also at the same time pulls all the vehicles off of the street. So I've heard certain things that were said, so I'm doing a little bit of juggling and I can accomplish a lot of those. The ability to, change that height there is something that I can't get to. So that'll be, from a site plan perspective, that'll be on you folks, but I've been real open about it.
Yeah, I don't want to take up too much more time, but, parking has always been a concern in this neighborhood.
Yep.
Thinking
Yeah.
back to when the Quincy Adams T Station opened up on Independence. and,
This will be the best parked property of all of those properties that I just mentioned.
And so, but for guest parking, you drive down Franklin, Independence, Sweeney, I'm not gonna speak
Yeah.
for Sweeney Brothers, but they block off their parking lot.
Can I have the first one, Joe?
For
The
parking
first one?
issues.
Yeah, this will be, I'll walk around with you if you want and I'll say, doesn't conform, doesn't conform, doesn't conform. I've got two parking spaces per unit, which when I go into other communities, the standard for something like this is usually like 1.5.
No, I have no issue with your parking
Yeah.
for the
So, I
residents.
mean,
I'm bringing, and I know you've heard this, I'm sure,
Yeah.
but for guest parking, all these concerns, again, coming from when this project was first proposed. I know it's not your project, it's the one that was proposed prior, but it's a very similar project
Yeah.
to what's being proposed tonight, so I'd imagine that the concerns and issues that the neighbors brought before this body last year,
Right.
or earlier this year, would likely be the same. Not all of them, but,
Right.
But I'll leave that at that. I know
But
we have
I'll
a
just,
public hearing
I'll
today,
just
too,
say,
but-
people can say, I don't like X, Y, and Z, but you just have to look at what the numbers are, look at what the norms are for, under, ITE requirements for parking spaces. This is actually very amply parked, and what happens, for visitors is they happen all the time. What's your name, or away, or they don't have a car, park in space number 2, it happens all the time. This property this actually will be superior to any of the other, you've got three stories so you've got a 3-story, 3-family with a driveway. If anything, it's got you can park 3 cars there, and a lot of the complaints are there's on-street parking. Of course there are, because people, enough people have to park there. This, by having 2 per unit, is, like, the numbers are, people can say, I'm afraid that it's going to be bad, but the bottom line is, this actually is able to handle the parking demand on site, unlike other properties that require street parking.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Any other questions over here?
Can I just say one more thing, Kim, for
Yep,
Larry's?
yep.
On the roof thing, the drawing, and Joe might wanna show it as A 1.5, shows the roof, and what if that's what the architect, I think it's A.15 in our little package, that's only has the elevator shaft and a stairwell, and no actual, like, air units on the roof.
I'll pull what I've got. I've got probably a bigger format than you have.
It's probably right in here.
Yeah, thank you. This is what I was talking about. You can see the distance. And you can see the distances. It's centrally located, and then that shows, basically, the roof, which to your eye is going to be flat, but because of drainage, that's what those lines are. Those are slight deviations to direct the water. But central core elevator, and again, if you are down low, you don't have the angle to be able to see it.
What's the height of that head house?
Can I get that to you between now and I could, it's basically 8.3 by 8.11 wide. Maybe my team can get it while I'm doing this. I'll
Yeah.
get that to you.
Okay.
Thank you.
And then just, I guess, 2 other questions, or 2 things I'd like to see, I suppose. The first, what I'd like to see is, if there could be a calculation performed, I'm sure that there can be, but I'm an attorney too, so I can't do the math. At what the ground cover is for snow. So if you have an inch of snow.
Yep.
What volume and where are you putting it? And then is there a number where it's 2 inches, 3 inches, so that we can condition our decision if
Yep.
this goes in your favor, to say, okay, in your condo docs and as a condition of this decision, when it's 2 inches or when it's forecast, it's going off-site, and so that we know that.
What we'll do, exactly.
Yeah.
We'll actually use, when I said we do this for the commercial, that's what she's getting at, because we have that for larger commercial. So it'll basically be the same here, and that's not a problem, because it's a comfort level. Definitely can get that for you.
Okay, and then the other question I had, so there's 2 spaces, as we've heard, per unit.
Yep.
Are those going to be, I guess, assigned, or easements, or whatever you wanna call it, sold with the units, so that each unit gets 2 spaces?
So there'll be an allocation. I don't know if it's going to be hard deeding of specific
Yeah.
numbers, because obviously the covered ones are going to be more desirable than the others. But it's not gonna be a free-for-all, it'll be assigned.
Okay.
And the assignments will be attached, but it'll be if I say net number, that feels right. But there won't, I don't envision it will be, you get spaces 1 and 2 or whatnot. It might be you get a covered space and you get one of the
Okay,
others.
got it.
That's the way we've done it in other buildings.
Okay. Alright, that's all I
Great,
had.
thank
Chair,
you.
one last question
Yes.
before- just one last question. So you got 9 apartments. I didn't see a mechanical room on the inside. I see an elevator room. Are all your condenser units gonna be put up on the roof?
Yes,
All
I
the
don't.
condenser units going on the roof?
I don't know. I would expect so, but I do not know. And I can get an answer to that.
Because there's no mechanical room inside the building.
Just a small one.
Yeah, it's on the first floor.
Well, you're not gonna get 9 condenser units in that.
Yeah, oh, no.
There's a
Oh, I thought you meant
small
like an air
mechanical.
handler, okay. So, yeah, I do, you asked the question, I do
Yeah.
expect that's the answer. Before your next meeting, I'll
Okay.
get you some more, but what we usually do is.
Because again, those are gonna sit up on raised things. They're gonna be up to, so they're gonna
Yeah.
add to the height.
What we usually do with those is we usually aggregate those around the center, and where this has the center core, they catch a corner of each of the units, and I'll get that to you. I've got,
Looks like where the screening
Excuse me.
area next to the head house.
like a parapet.
Yeah, see, it's like you've got the screen.
I'll get that information, yeah. There's no dimension on the head house. If you take a look, it's on like A2.1, you can see it, but,
Okay.
there you go. And there's no dimension for that either, so it's just kind of flat. But just know it's gonna be
And just
X
a
number of
question,
feet.
just if you can add, obviously, those are gonna be raised up because they're not gonna sit directly on the roof. How big are you gonna raise them up?
Yep,
And how big are the units gonna be?
okay, good. Excellent. And also, if I can get a proposed placement, we'll give you like an idea of how far they would be from the edge, so you can get an idea there as well.
Okay. All right, great. I think it makes sense now
Yeah.
to move over to public hearing. We've heard of the presentation. So we're going to open this up for public hearing, just kind of as a matter of course. If you just want to raise your hand, I can call on you and you can come up, identify your name and address. There's also sign-in sheets on the side, so if you don't want to come up, but you want to sign in for or against the project, you can do that too. Before we get into kind of the public comment, I do have 2 letters here that I'm just going to read for the record. The first is from Douglas Menz. Hello, I want to express my opposition to the condo development at 10 Independence Ave. I don't feel that this should be built in the historical district with the Adams houses. Also, there are restrictions of record on the deed by Shell Oil Company dated November 10th, 1997. Deed, it says 120327 book, 12077, page 670, 671. The restrictions of 45 years implicate that the property site is likely contaminated as a gasoline service station had been there for many years. I hope that our planning board rejects the developer's plan and keeps the historical district as it is. Sincerely, Doug Menz. And the second is from Joseph and Mary Chapetsky. Councilman Ash, we received your letter about the development on Independence Ave today. We are unable to attend the meeting. We would like to tell you we completely are against it. It's in a terrible location which will cause parking and traffic problems. The area has the Adams houses and businesses that will be affected by the building's residents and their guests. The city has more than enough apartments, I presume it should say, and condos built and being built. Has that become difficult to drive anywhere in the city? It's time the city council stop rubber stamping, taking business, and throwing up all these sweetheart deals. Thank you. So with that, we'll open it up for public comment. Yep, sir.
Hi, my name is Taylor Campbell. I'll be quick as I'm not in a butter. I live at 133 Willow Street near Eastern Nazarene. But I'd be tempted to live here. This looks really cute. My only critique is that I think there's actually too much parking. If I lived there, I would have no use for 2 parking spaces. It's 8-minute walk to Quincy Adams. There's 3 different bus lines that literally stop right at that intersection. Another one that stops half a mile away. It's a quarter mile away. It's half a mile from a grocery store, hardware store, pharmacy. I think it's unfortunate that an insatiable thirst for parking has driven out the potential for multi-use ground floor. I think it'd be great to see a little coffee shop or something on the ground floor. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak? Yes?
Good evening. My name is Richard Sweeney Jr., 1 Independence Avenue, residence 20 Dewson Road in Quincy. Before I begin, I'd just like to answer Mr. Kelly's question. The predominant theme at that community meeting the other night and the ones in the previous are the same. Most people are mostly concerned about the height of this building. So this new proposal for 10 Independence Avenue includes some changes that would seem to make the project more desirable to the neighborhood. These include changing from a dark brick exterior to a lighter colored hardy board, no basement because of the existing water issues, a better parking plan, but really no addressing the guests that were gonna come to visit these people. Where are they gonna park? There is limited street parking. The other thing is centering the front door, all positive factors. But 6 months, after 6 months, the developer is still proposing 9 units and still asking for 4 stories in a 3-zone area. 4 stories, still too high and inappropriate for this historical setting. Again, the building is absolutely too large for this small-sized lot. We know by right the developer is entitled to build 3 condominium units on just under 11,000 square foot lot. A 4-story building on such a small lot would just look out of proportion. 2 recent developments on Franklin Street worked within the 3-story limit, so we know it can be done. Councilor Ash has asked the question at the meeting about reducing the ceiling height in an attempt to lower the overall height of the building. I'm not sure he received an answer, and I'm not sure whether it would make a major difference. I take exception too to the drawing with the cupola of our funeral home, built in the late 1880s, early 1890s. It was a decorative thing. It's a small highlight to the building, and we just tried to duplicate and add a new gable on the Independence Ave side to mimic the gable that's above to try and enhance the quality of the building. I don't think it compares to a 4th floor and 3 condominiums. This is a dynamic, historic neighborhood located at the crossroads of 2 important gateway entrances to the city of Quincy, Franklin Street and Independence Avenue. This extremely busy intersection serves as a corridor to the southern access to downtown Quincy Center. The highlight of this neighborhood and what makes it so special are the birthplaces of 2 United States presidents, John Adams and John Quincy Adams. Under the stewardship of the National Park Services, these birthplaces are designated as historic landmarks. They are national treasures. The historical aspect of our neighborhood should be recognized, promoted, and enhanced. No one disputes that the current repair shop is unsightly. A reasonably designed 3-story condominium would be a tremendous improvement. I would hope that you, as members of the planning board, listen to the concerns and fears of the neighbors and the abutters who will have to live with this project if it's approved as is. 3 stories, 6 units, or a mixture of smaller units and standard setbacks are not unreasonable requests for those who live and work in this neighborhood. Any benefit of the doubt should lean toward the neighborhood. I would like to say that this development company is one of the best, that they have a proven track record, and no one can dispute the fine work that they have done throughout this city. But I would propose to Attorney Taccio and his team that there are still much room for compromise and negotiation to make this project appealing and acceptable to all in this historic section of Quincy. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes.
Hello, my name is Cindy Brandy. I live at 52 Independence Avenue. I've stood up here before and objected to the first 2 proposals. I do not object to this one. It has, yes, it's big, but it's much nicer than what we've got there. They've paid attention to a lot of the feedback I feel from the city. I agree with the one that 18 spaces is probably too much parking. So I'm not seeing a huge problem with visitor parking. So since I've since I've said no sometimes, I thought it was important to stand up and say, I think it's okay.
Can I ask you a question? So what was the driving force behind you changing your position on it?
The brick was really bad.
Yeah.
That did look like a wall. I like the fact that the architecture is detailed, moving the door to the front spot and having some of the plantings around. I'm a walker. I drive as little as possible, and I walk. And it's made it a little bit better. Would I like it to be a lot smaller and 5-foot setbacks? Of course I would. But I also, economic realities are such that I'd rather that than the gas station that we currently have that is an eyesore. I love the idea that perhaps the city would work with them to bury the stupid poles. I think just removing that would make a huge improvement from looking from the Adams family stuff. If we could get to the point where you do bump outs so that you're not walking across while the lights are switching and the cars are starting to gun, so you don't have to scurry like rats to get across, that would be good too. So this is, it's an improvement to what's there. The city is never gonna have enough housing. I'll be honest, we grow or we die, and I'd rather not die. So this is acceptable. It's not a 15-story building. Yeah, it's 3.5, it's 4. But I like the architecture of it. I like the fact that they're listening. There shouldn't be any on-street parking with this. The fact that you'll be able to see around the corner, the setback of the 5 feet, that's important for those who do drive. So, looking through the first one and the second one, this is so much better from my perspective.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Good evening. My name's James Dunn, 167 Babcock Street, Quincy. This illustration looks marvelous compared to what's here. No one can disagree with that that's in this room, I don't think. The 9 units, it is a lot, but I'm a contractor. I know what you have to do today. A piece of 4-inch pipe has gone from $20 to $80 now. Okay, so I understand what the lawyer is saying, that they get a goal they have to meet to make this work. If you people don't vote to make this work, your only alternative is to go back to Shell and ask them to do a historic thing on that gas station to make it look, to fit into the neighborhood, because it's terrible. I mean, everybody knows there's a parking problem going up Independence Ave, but 18 parking spaces. I'm involved in a lot of these projects in Quincy. A lot of people don't drive anymore. The gate's right up the street. We heard all this hoopla. If they open the gate, they're gonna be breaking into our houses and parking in front of our houses. I'm up and down the street 40 times a day. I don't see all this illegal parking. That's what we have police for. I think it's a beautiful illustration. And Mr. O'Connell will build that, because I know you've seen people show you this and you end up with something else. He will build this. If anything, it'll look better than that. I know from his track record. Thank you, board members.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you for this opportunity. And I want to thank the planning board for these challenging questions and for your insight into making decisions that are best for us in the present and certainly for the future. And I am the National Park Service Superintendent for the Adams National Historical Park. My name is Mary Ann Peak, and I manage properties with historic integrity. And we also feel the pain sometimes of poor decisions that are made along the way. And we look out the window and we see the results of that. So I like to be a good listener to hear what the plans are and maybe influence strong and good supportive, smart growth within our community so we all benefit. So I'm really looking for compromise and opportunity. We know the developer, who is certainly very remarkable and well-respected throughout our community. And we also know a lot of the players who will be a part of this project. So my comments are going to be based on my experience with the neighbors in the neighborhood managing a National Historic Landmark in this very community where they want to do this construction. So when you hear my ideas, many of them were gleaned from the standing room only meetings of community invited by our councilor, Richard Ash. And he also had some very good insight that I hope he'll share later. Some of my concerns and suggestions relate to the building and size and design. And we're all in an opportunity where it's in early stages, so we all have an influence. The proposed 4-story condominium might be too large for the location, especially considering its proximity to the sidewalk and surrounding structures like the National Historic Landmark birthplaces I just mentioned. The recommendation from neighbors is to reduce the building to 3 stories to better fit with the surrounding architecture. Excuse me. The building size could potentially cast shadows and affect pedestrian safety, traffic, and the landscape around the roadway. We heard that at those meetings. Clearly, this major intersection needs to be examined to improve traffic flow, access, and pedestrian safety. There are 5 connecting roads to this area. In addition, the impacts of tourism, trolley traffic, and parking is a critical challenge as businesses are expanding in a good way. Development is underway with a lack of adequate parking. And experience is the best teacher. If you drive by the Adams Mansion today or any day in the evening, you'll see 10 cars parked on Adams Street. Why? Because they don't fit into apartment parking lots. The people can't afford the parking fee to park their car within the structure, so they go on street parking. So we want to be sensitive to make the right decision, whatever that decision might be. Consider revisiting the project to accommodate 3-story structure with simpler architectural lines that blend into the surrounding community in the neighborhood and the National Historic Landmark. Consider the Adams birthplaces. A pie-shaped property, 3/4 of an acre, is more square footage than the proposed build-out of a 9-unit structure with 18 parking spaces, plus room for traffic to enter and exit for 18-plus vehicles, including delivery trucks, dumpster pickups, and more than 5 intersecting roads. Now, is this justification for a smaller build-out? That's to be determined, because I understand the economics of it too. They can't go build something small to suit us if it's not financially profitable for them. That makes common sense. So reconfigure the building to include smaller units might be an option. Studios or 1-bedrooms within 3 stories for young professionals or for those downsizing, which would help meet the needs of a local housing market. Or focus on minimizing visual and auditory disruptions from rooftop mechanical equipment and explore options for underground utilities. I like the idea about putting those wires and telephone poles underground. Increase the green space and provide more visitor parking by reducing the number of units. It only makes sense, but I know there's a problem there. And reconsidering the building footprint. Does the first floor have to serve as storage bins, utility equipment for a systems operation, and a gym? Could it convert to units so the 4th story could be eliminated? 3 or 4 trees placed around the structure or a 12 to 24-inch surround of grass is not adequate for green space for this size structure. At one of the public meetings hosted by City Councilor Richard Ash, he made a recommendation that the developer consider minimizing the footprint, and neighbors expressed further discussion was warranted or would be appropriate. It is hopeful the developer will pursue this discussion as suggested. In addition, the developer's legal counsel suggested that should the developer withdraw, the neighbors would be left with or subject to what is there now or another garage. However, an alternative could be to explore the possibility of purchasing the land for conservation or public park use to benefit the broader neighborhood and to maintain a balance between development and green space. Consider community preservation funds to acquire the property to be converted to a park, open green space for park-like activities and enjoyment to benefit the youth and community as this valued suburb of the city is undergoing redevelopment. The city purchased the Acapulco building for a city park near Hancock Common. Could this be alternative open space for the city to acknowledge President John Quincy Adams and Louisa Catherine Adams? So there are other alternatives or options for consideration. Ensure that any peer review findings and any public feedback are made transparent to ensure informed decision-making, because I think we all have an opportunity to be in this together and to be really proud of the decisions we make. It seems like smart growth needs to be a priority for a more balanced approach that integrates the community's needs, reduces the building's scale, and preserves green space that could lead to a more positive outcome for both the developers and neighbors and community as it renews itself. Now, when Charles Francis Adams acquired the property in 1848 at the Adams birthplaces, it contained 200 acres, and today we have 3/4 of an acre. He donated the land to the Old Colony Railroad, and he also donated Marymount Park to the city of Quincy. So we have an opportunity here to make the best possible decisions about this proposed building or whatever its future may be. And I really wish, if it is building this particular structure, that we all can look forward to it with great opportunity. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else wishing to speak? Yes.
I'm Annalie Johnson. I reside at 36 Garfield Street in Quincy. I am so thankful for Superintendent Peak addressing you this evening. We are fortunate to have a person like that in our city. And I would like to just concur with everything what Superintendent Peak had just said. It is a historic district. And the building looks like, and it has nothing to do with Victorian architecture. Perhaps the top floor has a few ideas of that. So thank you so much for totally opposed to that monster to be in this neighborhood. Thank you, opposing it.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak on this? Yes.
Hello, my name's Jocelyn Sedney. I live at 85 Monroe Road. I was very thankful to hear Superintendent Peak, and it's very difficult to follow her because I think she had such great comments, one of which I thought was tremendous, which was perhaps to encourage Mr. O'Connell, who I do think has a great relationship with the mayor, to consider this as a perfect pocket park for the John Quincy Adams statue and monument. It's so close to the other Adams facility, it would be great, but that's probably a dream. I was trying to think of what seemed different about this building or that made it so it didn't really fit the place. And when we looked at the first photograph that showed the view of the building from the Adams site, it looked like a prison to me first. But it's because it's so massive and it's white and it just seems to stand out in terms of that area. I think that if the building could have been situated in the back, as opposed to right smack in your face, it's almost like in your face. And if it could come down another level, I think to compare that height of that building with a cupola or a spire or an A-frame roof is simply misleading. That's a big building. It's not massive, but it's big. There's no division like you can see in the houses beyond that in the A-frame buildings. The Mr. Sweeney's funeral home has division and has interesting, features at the top. That's not this building. So to perhaps situate it further to the back, which I think would give them more space, and to take off the top of that building, I think would be better. My concern would be that there's this building. If you approve this building, someone's going to buy the building where McKay's is, or else whoever owns McKay's is going to say, okay, this is prime for development. We're going to build apartments over commercial, like everybody else is doing now. McKay's can be on the bottom floor, apartments above. And instead of showing this building compared to a cupola or a steeple, you're going to see that development compared to this building. And it's a slippery slope. It's going to march right down this area. It's going to impede not just the neighborhood, but it's going to affect that historical site. So I think it's important to pay attention to what you do today and realize that it's not just a decision for today. It's a decision for tomorrow too. And to try and work with the neighbors and with the historical people who are involved in this to maybe cite it in a way so it's not like in your face. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to speak? Anyone else? Councilman Ash?
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board. Richard Ash, 7 Silver Street, Ward 2 City Councilor. This is not an easy one, and you have heard from quite a few people tonight, and I'm sure each of you has your pieces of the opinions that have just preceded me, as well as Attorney Tacio's presentation and your own thoughts to sit with to decide what to do. And I have been pondering and wondering myself for the better part of the year. I hosted 3 community meetings with the assistance of Ward 4 Councilor Devine and Ward 5 Councilor Minton. This particular lot sits very close to their respective wards as well. January 18th of this year, we had 80 people. In May, there was about 50, and then a week ago, we had 40 people in attendance. Meetings were spirited and opinionated. As you all saw the original proposal beginning of the year, I'll save those issues. A number of them were addressed. All of the residents were happy when the proposal was withdrawn. Not that they didn't want to see something in this property on this parcel, but that they thought that the developer and the team would come back with something that was 3 stories, given that was the largest issue at the community meetings. I enjoy this design. I think Attorney Taccio and Mr. O'Connell and their team really did address a number of the issues, and I can certainly appreciate the mansard roof, the design, the visual aspect of it. Unfortunately, the residents still think it's just too tall. 44 feet with the comps, I'll say, Attorney Taccio cited to 160 Franklin. He mentioned that the actual height of the mass of the height of the building is not sitting on Franklin, but the street behind it, which may have been Bradford. But similar argument with 1 Independence Ave and the steeple, we're taking the tallest point of these buildings as compared to the height all around and the mass of this building. Unfortunately, given the mass and the lack of the setback, although the design is great, I really appreciate the cantilever. It seems like they're willing to work with the residents on green space, on trees. The parking, I would defer to you all on your parking, what each member thinks on the parking. I understand each neighborhood is different. This is a large, lively group of residents. The meetings are very well attended. They all would like to see a proposal here. And I know some of them probably, in disagreement with Attorney Taccio, some of them probably do love that auto shop, but maybe not visually. So they really would want to see something of this caliber, of this nature, on a smaller scale. And a couple of those suggestions have been floated around. I really do want to, though, commend the team, the owners, developers, attorneys, to come back with the proposal that addresses 80%, 90% of the issues that the residents had. Is commendable. They're easy to work with, a great team. My job, obviously, is to bring you all what I hear at that neighborhood meeting. So I think I have covered that, and I look forward to your decision. Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to speak on this? Anyone else? No? Good. So I'll remind everybody, there are sign-in sheets here tonight. Attorney Taccio, I don't know if you want to respond, or you don't have to. I just figure I'd give you the opportunity. But I think we're going to continue it anyways.
Yeah, the department would recommend, since this is an open, typically we do 2 months, but we have seen this, the review departments have seen this before. The department has hired the same peer review firm that did the original review. So right now there is no continued cases for December. The department feels as though 1 month continuance, that we could get the review documents into the board and obviously available for the public to pick this up in 1 month. So that would be December 18th, 1 month continuance.
Motion to continue to the December 18th meeting.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Great. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you to the
Thank you.
neighbors and also the counselor. Thank you.
The next one. Can we take just a 5-minute break?
Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, it feels about right. Oh, we got 3 more.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I didn't get home to let my dog out.
Oh,
I'm like,
what,
oh my God.
that you oppose it?
All right.
Oh, Ally's gonna-
Get this
Ally,
party
still waiting?
rolling.
waiting for Ally.
So the alley?
Okay. All right, so we're going to get started again. So if folks want to keep talking, they can go out into the hall.
Joe, go back to what you had.
Thank you. So the next item on the agenda is a new public hearing, 61 to 69 and 71 Hancock Street, Planning Board Case Number 2024-12. This public hearing shall be conducted to review the application of Tremont Quincy 1 LLC, 280 Summer Street, 6th floor, Boston, Mass. 02110, for site plan review under Quincy zoning ordinance Title 17, Section 9.5.1, site plan review, and special permit under section 5.1.17 parking waiver. The applicant proposes the removal of the one-story commercial storefront building on Hancock Street and the construction of a new 8-story building consisting of 139 residential units, along with 2 levels of structured parking for 134 vehicles. The proposal will also include structured exterior space and amenity space for the residents, along with professional design, drainage controls, and landscaping. The property contains 35,935 square feet of land and is located at 61 to 69 and 71 Hancock Street. The subject property is located within a Business C zoning district and shown on Assessor's Map 6168, lots 13 and 20.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board. Attorney David Mahoney, and I represent the applicant Tremont Quincy 1 LLC. We're before the board tonight for the project which you just described, Madam Chair. This, to orient you to the site, this is if you're coming into Quincy from Boston over the Neponset River Bridge. On the right, there's a Domino's Pizza. This is that site. And this project may look a little familiar to you because, to refresh your memory, we were back in here with a larger project back in August of '21, a much larger project. That project didn't get built for a variety of reasons. We're coming out of COVID, interest rates were high, commodity prices were high, particularly lumber. So that it didn't get built. I think you'll find this is a worthy successor to that project. On September 24th, just this past September 24th, we got a unanimous vote from the Zoning Board of Appeals for a special permit and for several bulk and dimensional variances. I'd like to turn it over to the architect now to go through the presentation. We have a team of professionals here. Rob?
Thank you, David. Madam Chair, member of the board, we appreciate your attention here. If you can slide onto this, yes, this slide. So what you see here on the screen right now is the site boundaries dotted in red. The site itself, as David started to mention, abuts Hancock Street to the northeast. It has Newbury Street to the northwest at the sort of primary intersection, and it rounds the corner toward a Neponset Ave extension. And so most of the design and work we've done has really been about understanding that this is a true gateway from the northern places into Quincy, coming across the bridge. So really holding that intersection at Newbury and Hancock, and then also really sort of massing the building in a way that really affords the opportunity for the tremendous views to the south toward the Neponset River, toward the northeast toward the ocean and Wollaston Beach, and then toward the prime corner toward downtown Boston. Next slide, please. This is a view looking directly from Hancock Street, the intersection of Newbury. You'll see our glass double height entry right at the corner of Hancock and Newbury. We have a robust tree canopy and public realm and sidewalk scape along Hancock with a vegetative buffer that really helps sort of screen that from traffic. And we've oriented the entrance points along Newbury Street to limit any sort of stopping along Hancock Street. The design of the building really was inspired through sort of warm natural colors, really thinking about the driftwood colors of the Neponset River trails, and then also the sort of warmer tones of a lot of the other buildings within the Quincy area. It's an 8-story building, approximately 139 residential units, and we have 134 parking spaces. If you go to the next slide here. So we have incorporated sort of 2 different tones of fiber cement material for the building to sort of break up the scale. And you notice that we've sort of broken the building into sort of 3 distinct zones, and this is as you're looking from Quincy, to really afford the opportunity for corner views, looking in and out, and also to really break down the massing of the building to make it feel a little bit sort of more residentially scaled. You'll see at the ground level there's a robust tree canopy as well as a nice screening of the 2 levels of parking that align with the double height lobby at the corner. Next slide, please. This is a more direct view looking sort of frontally onto from the Hancock Street side. We have a number of different scaled elements that are sort of punctuations within the facade that have that sort of warmer driftwood tone to them, and in certain moments we've provided the opportunity for Juliet balconies for greater access and views from the site. And then you see again here at the bottom right the double height entrance glass lobby. Next slide. Yes, thanks. And this is a direct view looking along Newbury Street. To the bottom left corner, you see the entrance to the main lobby. In the middle, you see our loading access, which is off-street. And then just to the right of that, a garage parking entry and access points. And then along this side, the building actually gets great views toward the Neponset, or will get great views toward the Neponset River. So we have a number of Juliet balconies that front onto that side. Next slide, please. So this is the first floor. You see in the top left corner here is that lobby we've discussed, large double height space, and then the balance of this particular floor is made up with our loading, our trash, and then approximately 68 of the 134 parking spaces. And then along the back edge of the site, which I'm sure David will talk about a little bit more, we have a dog park which is accessed from the Hancock Street side as well as through the garage itself. Next slide, please. This is the second level of parking. The double height lobby is along the corner, and we also have some leasing spaces that look down onto that primary lobby. Next slide. So this is our third floor where we have an amenities deck. This is above the parking level, and this is sort of southern focused. It will have various amenities for the residents. There's also about a 3,700 square foot amenity space that fronts onto that deck, and residential terraces for the units that front onto it as well. Next slide, please. This is a typical upper level residential floor. Like I said, 134 units, approximately 21% of those are studios. 50% are 1 bedrooms, and then 25% are 2 bedroom units. Next slide, please. So this is the top floor, the 8th floor of the building, which is similar to the floors below, with the exception of a sky lounge, which is the front corner facing toward the toward Hancock Street and Newbury Street, but also capturing views toward downtown Boston. And then on the top, you see a rooftop amenity deck that'll be an amenity for the residents that live there, as well as zones in which we plan to screen the mechanical systems, making sure that they're out of view of people from down the street. Next slide, please. So I will pass it now on to Sean to talk through civil.
Yes, thank you, Rob. Good evening, members of the board. I'll give a brief presentation on the civil, and then if there's any questions at the end, we can walk through those. But as you can see, the existing site here today, a series of commercial buildings, a single-family residential. The majority of the site is impervious pavement. The buildings themselves are well into the right-of-way, leaving little room for sidewalks and improvements. That's just been through a series of takings over time. The single-family house has been removed at this point, but it just remains kind of a vacant gravel fenced off lot. So this whole area is really ripe for a refresh and a development. Moving to the next slide. So as you can see, Rob kind of highlighted some of the building parts, but I wanted to talk a little bit about the site itself. By redoing and pulling the building back from where they exist almost 8 feet into the right-of-way now, where we set it at the right-of-way, it gives us a nice corridor along the front of the project where it's an opportunity, where it's really wide there. It's not just a standard 5-foot sidewalk. We've got a 10-foot sidewalk and then a planting strip and then the curb for the roadway, allowing us for some of those really large trees in that buffer. And that also allows us to get a nice sidewalk all the way from the left of the plan by Densmore Street to the Newport Ave extension all the way across the front, and then all the way down Newbury Street as well to provide a continuation for any future developments in that area. So it really frames the street. And with landscaping, they can explain a lot of the features that are there that really make it an attractive corridor. Another part I just wanted to highlight on that sheet as well is that loading. The off-street loading that Robin mentioned is for a 30-foot single-unit box truck to be able to back into the building and be completely off the right-of-way. In the previous plan, we had a series of kind of pull-offs for drop-offs, pickups, move-ins. With this feature, we'll get all that right off of Newbury Street, so you won't have a moving truck sitting there for 3 hours when people are moving stuff in it. It just really cleans up that corridor. And then just south of that would be the main entrance for all the vehicles entering and exiting the building. And then just touching on the parking a little bit, 134 spaces. We are asking for a special exception. We're right about 1 space per unit, given the type of development here where this has got some smaller units in it and the proximity to downtown. We feel that's a good ratio at 0.96 spaces per unit. We also will have or ask for a special exception for some of the reduction in allowed compact spaces. So with this development, we do have some opportunity where there are spots where the spaces are slightly smaller, 8 by 18 versus 9 by 18. So even though it is a compact, an 8 by 18 we feel is still a good size parking space. And what the intent of that was is to try to fit as many parking spaces within that building to drive up that ratio as we could. Then moving to the next sheet is the grading and drainage. So this site, as it exists today, it basically sits on top of a hill. The center of the site is the highest point in the surrounding area, and everything flows off untreated, uncontrolled, in all 4 directions, down Hancock Street, down Newbury Street, and then to the south to the abutting property. And what we've heard through some of the public comment with zoning is there is some flooding, tidal flooding, down towards further north on Hancock Street. And so the intent of the design with this project, we are elevated and this site is up out of the flood zone. The flood zone is around elevation 10. The building for this site is around elevation 16. So we are 6 feet above it. We are at the high point. But we did put a lot of consideration into the drainage to account for that. The vast majority of that water now just goes straight into the road, down the street, into the city system, and contributes to that. And so what we did with this design is all the water coming off of the roof goes into the series. You see those 4 tanks to the left. We have another smaller one up to the north. And what those would be is just big, large underground concrete detention structures. The total volume of those would be like almost 35,000 square feet, so probably the size of almost this room itself. And what that will do is just allow all that water to fill those tanks and then be controlled, released at a controlled rate so that we're not inundating that downstream system. It would all tie back into the system in the same locations, but those tanks will really slow the runoff and help reduce some of the, the existing impacts that are there today. And then the remaining drainage for the courtyard, the elevated courtyards, the green roofs, and the dog park area will go into a series of dry wells, which will provide groundwater recharge back into the site, the best that we can. And then those will flow off-site at a reduced rate as well. So all in compliance with Mass DEP stormwater standards for a redevelopment project. We're above and beyond with the groundwater recharge, and overall a substantial improvement compared to what's there today. Flipping to the next sheet, just simple utilities here. Everything's pretty much in place on Hancock Street. Water would just connect to the existing system. Sewer runs in an easement, city sewer just at the back of the property. We would just tie into that. Electric, telecom, gas would all come off the eastern corner of the building there to the existing utilities, and then the transformer would just be hidden in the landscape there. And then next sheet for lighting. So again, this would be LED decorative street lighting along the front, kind of staggered in between the trees, and then a series of LED downlighting wall packs just to illuminate the sidewalk around the building. Again, this would all be incorporated, with the building lighting package, so it all matches as we get into the building permit and further down. But for now, this is the general intent of the lighting. And at this point, I can turn it over to Dave to talk about some of the landscaping features we have.
Good evening. I'm David Walsh for the landscape architectural firm of Hammer Walsh Design. We actually have 3 levels of landscape here. We have the street level, we have the third floor amenity deck, and then the roof terrace as well. This is the layout material sheet, and as you can see along Hancock, we have a series of colored concrete paving patterns, and the edge of Hancock is edged with a raised 6-inch raised granite planter, and then extending down to the dog park, we have a double gate so the dogs don't get out, and we have a area of artificial turf so the dogs can play on that as well, and there'll be a hose there so that all can be hosed out. Next slide. The planting, all of the planting areas are irrigated. That's number one, both on the street and all the upper levels as well. And along Hancock, we have 5.5-inch trees specified. Those are autumn spire red maples, and 5.5 inches is that big around. And typically about 3.5 inches is the size. And to get those kind of trees in there, we only have about 15 feet from the face of the building, so you have to specify something that's tall and narrow, and that's what these red maples do. And we have planting along the edge of Hancock is ornamental grasses that are cut back in the winter so the snow can plow up. And down on the dog park, we have, that's a south-facing area, so it's gonna get hot. So we have a American elm and a flowering cherry tree as well to provide some scale and shade. We also have planting along the transformer area on Hancock. And as you saw from the architectural slides, we have living walls as well, landscape panels on the walls. Next slide. So this is the third floor amenity terrace. We have private patios, green roof on top of the community room, pool area, and then a trellis for outdoor cooking and whatnot. And the area looking down to the south will be the view of the Deposit River. So any planting there has to stay low. Next slide. This is the planting plan that shows the different paper bark maples. And again, all of the ornamental grasses along the edge on the south are going to be low, so you can sit there and look out and not see the parking lot below, but you can see out to the river. Next slide. And the roof terrace is a place that we have kind of a zen type of a garden quality to it, and an area where we can put raised planters, which would be anchored to the roof so they don't blow away, obviously, with a fire pit. And then in season, we bring out furniture into the open areas. Next slide. One thing to notice, detail number 5, we're going to have structural soil along Hancock, so which will allow the roots to grow out and also support the pavement. Now, we did this on the Rose Kennedy Greenway. All of that, on top of the tunnel, we have structural soil developed by Cornell University, and allows the roots to grow out 15 to 20 feet and also support the load on the pavement. And there's a detail number 13 is the detail of the living fence, living wall, and all of the gravel is going to be river stone, so there's no mulch. It will let the irrigation drip down into the mulch. Next slide. And I guess that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Is that it in terms of?
That concludes the
Okay.
presentation, Madam
Great.
Chair.
Okay, let me
The
see if
team is
we-
here for questions.
Sure, thank you. Anybody have any questions?
You want to go first? Go ahead.
Yeah.
I was digging through my old plans and came across the original plan here, and I was looking at this one, comparing. This is a much better version, I think. I like the way you described the color scheme, how you came about it. I think this, even though the other project was good for the area, I think this will fit in a little better. The other one was a little big, but this one is gonna fit in nice as you're coming down off the Neponset Bridge, as you're coming into the city of Quincy. It's gonna really look nice. I like the way it's laid out. and I like the sidewalk and all that, and I think it's gonna be a nice, I just drove by there yesterday and pulled over and I looked at it, and it is an eyesore right now, so when you come into the city, it's gonna definitely make a big improvement. I just wanna say I commend the team for doing this, and, just my spiel, I know you haven't heard, but some of the other guys did, but, there's plenty of men and women in the city of Quincy that would love to work on a project of this magnitude, especially since we're gonna be transforming the way we come into the city. So please consider hiring someone that can put men and women of the city of Quincy to work. That's all I have, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Member Shaughnessy?
So there's 139 units. How many two-bedroom units are there? Not percentage-wise, but actual numbers,
Percentage. Give me 1 second.
please.
Absolutely.
Or just tell me how many bedrooms are in there, and give me a parking spot for each one. What does that come out to?
So it's 174 beds, I believe, and 134 parking spaces.
Because right around the corner from you guys, on Commander Shea Boulevard, forever since they built that, there's cars parked out right as they make the turn there, right onto the public street, and they've been there forever. So I wonder, and I don't know the exact parking ratios, I'm sorry, I'm not like an expert on that, but no parking for guests, not a parking spot for each bedroom. I'm wondering, where would like any extra cars go?
So, Jacob Stark,
Yep,
I'm with,
could you just speak at the podium? Thank you.
Jacob Stark, I'm with Tremont Quincy, one, the LLC, the
Sure.
applicant. What we've been seeing in the market is that for rental housing like this that has proximity to public transit like the Red Line and rapid transit bus stops in the area, the ratio we're seeing that renters are actually going towards is closer to 0.85 to 9.9 stalls per unit. And so we're a little above that at 0.98. We will be using some of the spaces for building services and for guests, and so it won't be entirely devoid of that. And we feel that given the use of rideshare, of public transit, and the decline in car ownership, we'll be fine with the current number of parking stalls in the building.
That's a good answer. Thank you.
Button.
Yeah, thank you,
Okay.
Madam Chair.
Member Liaison, you're good?
I do.
Oh,
Go
I
ahead,
didn't know.
Larry. Go
I
ahead.
didn't know. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, one question for you, and forgive me. On Newberry Street, my dog goes to Hancock Animal Hospital right across the street. And I saw that the loading dock, the garage, I'm assuming you can't turn around, so you're backing up. What's because there's a parking lot right alongside Hancock Animal. Is that enough space to maneuver that turn for the trucks coming in and out? Sorry, I'm looking at.
Yeah, no, that's all right. If you want to go to sheet C5 on the civil, I believe it's C5. Yeah, right there. So as you can see, those kind of curved lines
Oh, I
there,
see, yep.
those would be the turning movements for that. So that would be well within the 22-foot width of the pavement there, and then well out of that parking lot. You can see the kind of the dash line even
Yep.
further outside of that is
So
the
those
right
are
of
the
way.
parking spots for.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep. So that could all be maneuvered within that street section, not impacting the animal hospital.
Great. No, I'm just echoing Member Kelly's comments. I think this is a nice-looking project for this site, and yeah, that's all I got. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Any other questions?
Yeah, thank you. I agree. This is a much nicer project. I appreciate you taking into consideration the gateway aspect. You know, it's so important right there, coming in. It's gonna look so much better. Councilor Mahoney, you may remember that in the original proposal, the Commonwealth actually approved the traffic plan for that building. It wasn't just the city. The state did a study. You know, so that bodes well, that they approved that structure. You know, and one, I might have missed it. Have you determined these gonna be condos or apartments? Apartments, okay, thank you for that. And one last thing, not to give you a sales pitch or anything like that, or an opportunity for your future residents, but you mentioned the T and the buses. The city's making great strides with ferry service right at the end of Commander Shea Boulevard. Take it right out to Squantum Point Park, to the diligence of the mayor's office. We got, and Congressman Lynch, $4.2 million a couple of weeks ago for a new pier. So you're gonna be real close to that as well. So I think this is great, thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you. So I do just have a couple questions. So on the level 1 plan, the level 2 plan, I thought I saw tandem parking spaces, but I just don't know if so what is kind of the game plan of how those are going to work and operate?
Yes, so our intent is to lease the tandem stalls solely to the two-bed units, so there's not gonna be any
Okay.
valet on site. There are, I believe, 5 here, and then I think a few more on the second floor as well. Yeah, so those 2. So we have 7 total, well under the number of 2 beds we have, and we think there'll be enough people that will be fully utilizing those just within 2-bed units.
Okay. So you'll be leasing, I guess, those specific spaces to those
Yes.
specific units?
Yeah, and that will probably just happen as a first come, first served basis for 2-bed units that move into the building. I'll let the management team who operates the building figure that out, but each of the stalls will be numbered, and when someone rents a unit and they want to rent parking, they will be assigned a stall.
Okay. And then, okay, so you referenced, public transit and things like that. It seems like it's a little bit of a walk over to public transit, so I didn't know if you are proposing any kind of shuttle service. I know I used to live at Mariel and they had shuttle service.
Yes, Madam Chair. On the other project, there's a shuttle that goes from Neponset Landing to the T-station. And Mr. Slater, who was the managing principal of Tremont Asset Management, spoke. He's not here tonight, so I can't ask him specifically, but I know he has spoken about getting involved in that shuttle service. And we talked about that for the last project.
Okay,
Okay.
all right. All right, and just one, I guess, positive comment. We don't often see loading docks, and people kind of try to utilize every square inch, and it's really nice to see, some care be taken and design and intentionality to get trucks off the street and with deliveries and things like that, so I like that feature. I don't know if anybody has any other questions, or, okay. All right, so let's open it up for public comment, if that's okay with you, Attorney Mahoney. Is anyone here wishing to speak on this project, for or against? We also have sign-in sheets, so if you don't want to come up and speak, you're welcome to sign in as well. No? Yes?
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board. My name is DJ McKinnon. I'm from Atlantic Development. I'm one of the partners in the Abbey development, which is just around the corner from this development. Just like to say, I think this will be very complementary to what we have done. I think it's a good development for the area. It's well thought out, very good development team, excellent local council. And no, I think it'd be a great development for the city, so I just want to speak in favor. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak on this project? No? Okay, so I think we still need to undertake peer review, is that correct?
Yeah, sort of, Madam Chair, through you to the board, this is the second project in a row that's kind of come back to us. As we heard, the prior one was more or less the same. This one is a bit different, and I think the engineering sensitivity, especially with stormwater and traffic, I would recommend this go out 2 months to the January
What did we just set?
15th meeting, which is one of the reasons we approved the calendar up front. So I think that would give the review department, and I would also add, Fuss & O'Neill was the peer reviewer. We're going with the same peer review firm again. So we're hopeful to be able to engage with their design team pretty quickly on the back and forth. But again, this is a new approach versus what was approved a few years back. So it's not sort of picking it up and dusting off the old plans. It's a fresh look at the site. But the recommendation again would be out to 2 months to January.
Okay, is there a motion?
Madam Chair, we make a motion that we move it out to the January 5th meeting?
15th.
15th, I'm sorry, 15th.
Second that.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Sorry? I mean, we didn't close the public hearing, I guess we continued that. We continued the public hearing.
Correct.
Yeah. No, we did not close it, we continued it, yeah. Okay, so the next item on the agenda is a new public hearing again. It's 150, 152, and 156 Quincy Street. Planning Board case number 2024-11. This public hearing shall be conducted to review the application of NeighborWorks Housing Services of South Shore, Inc., 422 Washington Street, Quincy, Mass. 02169 for site plan review under Quincy zoning ordinance Title 17, Section 9.5.1 site plan review, and special permit under sections 5.1.17 parking waiver. The applicant proposes the demolition of the existing single and two-family homes and the construction of a new building consisting of 24 residential units, along with surface parking for a total of 12 spaces. The proposal will also include a professional design drainage controls and landscaping. The property contains 13,217 square feet of land and is located at 150, 152, and 156 Quincy Street. The subject property is located within an industrial A zoning district and shown on Assessor's Map 3064, lots 24, 3, and 41, plots 2, 1, and A2. Good evening, Attorney Fleming.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board. For the record, my name is Edward Fleming. I'm here on behalf of NeighborWorks Housing Services of the South Shore, Inc., the applicant. I'm joined tonight by Rob Corley and Tim Doherty from NeighborWorks. Also Jim Burke and from DeSalle Burke Sala Engineering. Jim will talk about the engineering in a moment. And Michael Murata, the architect on this project from Westwork. And Michael will talk more about the architectural matters. As you indicated, this project involves 3 different parcels. Property at 150, 152, and 156 Quincy Street. Presently, those properties consist of a single-family house on 150, a single-family house on 152, and a 3-family house on 156 Quincy Street. The property is zoned Industrial A. We are seeking site plan review under a particular section of the site plan review ordinance, which is section 9.1.5. 4, which is a provision that actually provided for the review of projects that have protection afforded by the Dover Amendment. This is an educational facility, and we'll get into that in more detail in a moment, that provides this particular proposal with the protections of 40A Section 3. As I indicated, this is 3 parcels of land. In total, the property is about 13,217 square feet. The proposal that's before you tonight, which the architect will get into in more detail, Mike will get into more detail, provides for the construction of 24 residential units. Those will be studio efficiency style affordable units with parking on site for 12 parking spaces. The building will be 4 stories in height, as you can see in the rendering, and the parking spaces will be provided right on site, along with landscaping amenities and also drainage controls that Jim will talk about in more detail. This particular proposal, as I indicated, is afforded the protection of 40A Section 3 because of the educational component of this proposal. This property is being designed and built for low-income clientele or residents. Those folks are going to be provided with services by NeighborWorks and affiliate companies, whereby they'll be provided classes and educational on personal finance matters, budgeting, nutrition, and other related matters, teaching these folks how to live independently on their own. There will be an office on site that will be housed by a member of NeighborWorks team, and that individual will be responsible for the educational classes that will be provided to the residents. That educational component provides really the protection under 40A Section 3. NeighborWorks, as you know, is very well known in the city, has been working in the city for over 40 years, and Rob can certainly speak about NeighborWorks' work in the city over those years. They've provided and created affordable housing, which is incredibly needed in this atmosphere, in this environment. This particular housing development will provide for folks that are essentially coming out of homelessness. and being afforded homes for the first time, hence why the educational component is an important part of the plan. So with that introduction, I'd like to turn this over to Jim Burke. I'll let Jim kind of talk about the engineering-related matters. Then I'll ask Michael Mariotta to talk about the architectural provisions, and then Rob and Tim are here to answer any questions about NeighborWorks and the overall proposal for this particular building. Jim?
Good evening. My name is Jim Burke. I'm a civil engineer with the Burke Sala offices here in Quincy. And we're involved with another NeighborWorks project, and glad to say that I am. We are looking at, Joe, can you push forward? Perfect. We have an existing conditions, as Ed was saying earlier, with 3 structures, 2 single-family homes and a multi, sitting on about 13,000 square feet total. The significant piece of this parcel or parcels is the impact of floodplain. Believe it or not, you're in the floodplain for Town Brook, elevation 30, and all 3 lots are contained within that. We did have to go see conservation, and we did receive an order of conditions already, so we're proceeding in that course. Next slide, Joe. What we have is a construction management plan for the demolition and the like, and we've got erosion control and stone aprons and whatever is needed really for the construction manager that are taking down those buildings and actually put up what NeighborWorks is going to be proposed. Next, please. So what you're looking at is about a 3,500 square foot building. Is that correct, Mike? 3,500?
The whole building gross is about 13.
So, and with a parking area of 12 spaces. It's 24 units in the building itself. You'll see the ramps for handicap accessibility out front. And the building itself is a foot above floodplain. Next slide, Joe. And there's the grading plan. You can see how the spot grades around the parking lot are kind of set in the corners and the like. And what we did is we created a floodplain, additional floodplain in that parking area. So we raised the building up, took it out of floodplain, and actually put the parking lot in the 100-year floodplain to provide an additional, where is it? About over 2,000 cubic feet of additional flood storage. So it's a benefit from that perspective for the neighbors. Next slide, Joe. And an additional benefit is the stormwater control. You can see that there's 36 4x4x4 concrete chambers underneath the parking lot. Now, it's significant in size because we didn't have an overflow. There's nothing to tie that drainage into. So what we're doing is that we're containing the 100-year event on site. Soils out there are pretty good. You're getting a fine sand, so you're getting a decent rate. So basically, the runoff coming off this site is next to zero. And you'll have some runoff in the front of the building and the like. The building's tied into it as well. So the stormwater is a significant benefit to this project as well. Replacing the water supply, 6-inch fire, 2-inch domestic, and a brand new sewer. And that's basically the civil aspects of the project. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Mike Morano from Westwork Architects. So I'll take you briefly through the site plans and the building plans. So as Ed had mentioned, we have 12 parking spaces for this property. We also have a few site amenities. To the rear of the building, we'll have a patio for the residents that'll be at grade and will be accessible. Both entries are accessible for the site. We've got a front entry ramp for the accessibility as well as 2 parking spaces. The other site amenities we have are bike racks that will be covered, and that's over to the upper left of the parking area. And the last site amenity we have is the trash enclosures. And those are sited right at the back of the parking area. Those should be very accessible to take the trash in and out. The next slide. So we will be providing full landscaping for the site. We'll be adding about 4 trees to the front of the property. It will be fully landscaped out with indigenous planting materials that will not take a lot of water. We'll also be having a generator for the project. That'll be at the rear of the property. It'll be screened. So this is the first floor plan. There are 24 units in total. The first floor will have 3 of those units, and 2 of those will be accessible. So at the bottom of the building there, you have your vestibule. There'll be the 2 resident offices there, and then there'll be a small entry lobby with the mail space. And then to the rear of the project, of the building, we'll have the laundry space, and that's adjacent to the patio that will be used by the residents. Next slide. So the floor plans are pretty typical. There'll be 7 units per floor. These are studio efficiency units. They're just under 300 square feet each. The way we like to set up those units is when you walk in off the corridor, you have, it's actually an adaptable bathroom because it's an elevator building. And then we've got a small kitchenette for the residents. And then a room for a bed, a room for 1 chair, and 2 closets. And that's pretty typical for each of these studio units. So that's floors 2 and 3. We can go to the next slide. The 4th floor is the same layout. And then you can see the roof plan. We decided to go with a pitched and a flat roof for this building. The flat portion of the roof will hide all the mechanical. It'll screen all mechanicals from the street views. And we liked having the pitched roof to blend in a little bit more with the neighborhood architecture. And we'll go next to some renderings. So this is the rendering from Quincy Street. Again, you can see this is actually the landscaping that we proposed. Of course, we'll have all new site lighting as well, along with some bollards. The architecture, we wanted to, of course, make sure we were keeping it in the neighborhood vernacular, but we wanted a little bit of a modern edge to it, and we've done clapboard sidings, and then the first floor is tech wood siding, which is a nice composite siding, and it doesn't fade, which I really like. Next slide, please. So this is another view from the corner. This is now patching the flat roof with a parapet, and this is looking back into the neighborhood street. And then we'll take a look at the next rendering, please. This is probably the rendering I like the most. This is with your back closer to Water Street. And you can see with the triple deckers as you go down the street, this is how the building would be as you walk down the street. And I think it fits very well into the neighborhood. I really like this view. It really stands out as a building. It has a nice presence, but it fits very well into the neighborhood. I think we can stop there and go for questions.
I just wanted to highlight the parking ratio. Although the parking ratio is quite different than the market rate ratios that were presented in the earlier meetings. This was done for a reason because the NeighborWorks actually operates a building of very similar nature that services a very similar affordable housing population. And in that particular development, there are no cars owned by the residents. And that's due to the income levels of the residents. So really these parking spaces will be created for in the event that someone were to have a car, but also for the staff that will operate the building and the educational uses within the facility. So that's our presentation.
Okay.
Mr. Corley's here. You want to say a few words about NeighborWorks?
Yeah. Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board. My name is Rob Corley. I'm the CEO of NeighborWorks Housing Solutions. This property here, actually we've been operating in Quincy since 1981. Our original offices were actually on the corner of Water Street and Quincy Street. Actually from this view is where our offices originally were. We're now on 422 Washington Street in Quincy Point. The three-story building on this street was the first property we ever purchased back in the early 90s. And the single-family homes have been used for this exact population along with the three-family for decades. So we've had unrelated individuals, older women and men coming out of homelessness living in these properties for over 15 to 20 years now. This development is very exciting to us because it is a building with an elevator. It creates more density. It's a more efficient unit, a better unit. Each unit has its own bathroom, which provides a more dignified existence for our residents. We have, as was mentioned, similar properties all across the city, including one we opened just a year and a half ago in Quincy Point that is nearly identical to this one. As was mentioned, there's zero cars there, as you can imagine, coming out of homelessness. That's not necessarily in the cards. We think we've been a good neighbor on the street for a very long time. We think this is sort of the evolution of the type of housing that we want to see created in the city for this population, and very excited to answer any questions you have about this project. Thank you.
Thank you. So let's see. Does anybody have any questions? No?
I just have one question. I mean, it's well needed for the low-income housing, but just refresh my memory. I thought the one in Quincy Point, didn't you have like a resource area that people could go to and they could help get assistance? Didn't you have that in the Quincy Point one?
Yeah, so in the Quincy Point one,
Didn't see
we have one one office space there and a community room in that development. And what we have really started to see is that community room is not being utilized by the residents as we would hope or think. And so this is actually another version or evolution in that where we'd rather have the unit or units on the ground floor as opposed to making a community room that isn't even being used. So the need for the housing is so important that we feel like it's a better use. So we have two offices and not that large community space.
Just my memory, I was just
You
trying
got
to
it
go back
right.
on my memory.
No,
but
you
I-
got-
Very
you got-
well answered question, so I get it. And
Yeah.
thanks for putting up the affordable housing.
Yeah, no, you're welcome, and you're right, there is a room like that.
I just want to say, great, congratulations. I think it's a great thing that you're doing. I mean, we do need it, for sure. It looks nice. Looks very nice.
Well, I'll ask some questions. No one else is going to. It looks great. I commend what you're doing, but I do have questions. Screening of the parking areas, they're going to be fencing?
We don't have fencing right now. We can go to, if you want to go all the way to the site plan, Joe, to the front. So we just have the low fencing, and maybe we actually can go to the rendering at the front, the first rendering. There you go. I actually think it's not in this rendering because you see it in the site plan. You will have a low, but it's a low fence that would be at the front right here.
Oh, I think that looks nice. I'm more concerned with the neighboring properties on the sides. I don't know if they're right.
So this is all new, so we rebuilt the fence all the way back. And maybe let's take a look at the other neighbor.
Go ahead,
I was just gonna say, we'll have a
Oh,
stockade
yeah.
fence all the way
Could you
around.
just stand to speak? Thank you, so people can see. Yeah.
Tim Doherty with Neighborhoods Housing
Thank you.
Solutions. Yeah, and so just as you see the stockade fence on that side, that will run the perimeter of the property.
Okay.
Back up.
Okay, great. Snow storage on site? Probably. Snow storage? Yeah.
They'll be using.
Could you just, sorry.
They'll be using when the green space available. That'll work. You'll see that, there's some snow storage out front a little bit, and there's some snow storage in the rear as well, out behind the dumpsters, and the transformer.
So how does one get the snow behind the dumpsters and the transformer?
It will have to, push it and manage it and snow blow it over.
Yeah, I just add that from a management perspective, we'll have so few cars in this parking lot, we'll be able to create snow storage within a couple parking spaces if necessary.
Okay. The dumpster, I saw one of the renderings, it looked like it was open in the front. Is that going to be swinging open? Like, I mean, there it looks like it's shielded. I just wanted to confirm that.
The rendering shows the doors open, but they'll
Okay.
they'll basically be closed.
Okay. And then what's the height of the building? I know we said 4 stories.
It's 48 feet, but that's to the highest peak is 48 feet.
48 feet?
Yeah.
Okay. What's the height of the 3-story that's down the street that you use in the renderings?
That, the 3-story just to the left, I think is a little over 38 feet.
38 feet?
Yeah.
Okay. And there's a property in between those 2 structures, that single-family residence? Between, yes,
Yes.
yes, okay.
Yeah.
And that's not owned by NeighborWorks? Okay.
And I believe there was a new development also permitted across the street that's significantly taller too than the other structures. I'm not sure, Rob, if you remember that building that was permitted on that street. I think it's probably a 4-story structure, or is it 3?
Parking underneath. as
With
well.
parking under.
Yeah. So it
So
could be-
parking under with 3 stories above, so it'll be another 4-story building across the street. And then the extra space storage is actually right behind this facility as well, on, right at on Liberty.
Yep.
And it's taller.
Right. Yeah, okay. And then I was just out of curiosity, so you mentioned the Dover Amendment. I'm kind of interested in it, just as kind of a zoning person. So are there classes being offered on site? Is there an educational component on the property?
Yes, so it's, every resident has a case manager, and those meeting rooms are where they have individual case management sessions and providing them with life skills on how to basically rebuild their lives and stabilize.
Yep, so that's offered on site?
That's offered on site.
Okay, and is it all one-on-one, or is it kind of, are there more, like, I think?
Well,
Attorney
within the neighborhood and within the community here, we have more group opportunities
Yeah.
for folks, but typically we find the population does tend, as was stated earlier about common space, that the
Yeah.
one-on-one is the most effective way to provide the training and education.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I think that's all I had for questions. Okay. So this is a public hearing, so I did just want to open it up to the public. Is there anyone here wishing to speak for or against this project? Sir, yeah. And while you come up, I'll just let everybody know that we do have sign-in sheets, so you can sign in if you're for or against the project, if you are so inclined. Good evening.
Back, Jim Dunn, 167 Babcock Street, and I just want to give you my support for this project, anything Mr. Corley wants to do. Only thing, maybe if you could name it after his old boss, Mr. Grenier, Norm Grenier. The Grenier house has a nice ring, doesn't it? Norm Grenier in all his years of service. Huh? Right, Rob? I think I worked on Rob with his first project on Morton Street. That's correct. Yeah. Thank you.
25 years. Thank you.
Thanks, Jimmy. Thanks, Jim.
Anyone else here wishing to speak on this application? Councilman Devine, I see you coming up.
Good evening. James Devine, 117 Cross Street. About a year, maybe a year and a half ago, I was on Winter Street when they were having a ribbon cutting for the one that we keep talking about. And it was so impressive, and it's amazing to think that the 24 small units, some people would think they're so small, but to each one of those individuals, the pride, the dignity, the safety that they feel is unbelievable. And I said, if you have anything like this in Ward 4, please tell me. Well, about 7 months later, I got a phone call and said, were you serious? I'm like, yeah, of course I am. This is beautiful. This is exactly what we should be doing as much as we can. The parking, clearly not an issue because these people really do not have the ability to buy cars mostly. So I'm really excited for it. I'm glad it's hopefully coming to complete fruition, and I give it 110% support. I think it's beautiful. Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to speak on this application? Sir?
My name is Rudy. I'm the next door neighbor. Here.
Yep.
Okay. So I'm really glad to see that beautiful picture. Still just a picture of the
If
building.
you could just address the
It's
comments. before. Thank you.
it's a beautiful picture of a building, and wonderful. Also, I heard a little bit about your intention for usage of this place. That's also, good in the sense of, helping these people. And as a matter of fact, I'm currently a good friend of current residents living there. Okay, they are very nice people, and we are good friends. So my question are the following. It's for my sort of security or whatever, right? Safety. First is that I'm layman in terms of construction, so I don't know how much of groundwork or underground work, how much that would, shaking up the ground, how much would that affect or damage my house there, right? So since you are, the watchdog, for private citizens like me, sitting in the Quincy City Hall, I hope you can send your professional, like inspector or engineer or whatever. I know nothing about that. Someone should visit the site and sort of like benchmark. My house is not perfect, but its current condition. You have to benchmark it, and you have to tell them, warn them not to damage my house. And then after the project, you have to sort of like measure against the benchmark. As they say, you damage it, you have to pay. Things like that. Okay, that's what I want. Okay. Secondly, originally I was worried about they're going to build a high building and block my sunshine. But it looks like they are here, and here is a open space, and this is only 3 floors. I think fair enough. It's as long as you consider my sunlight there, it's good. Okay. However, now you have this parking here. Currently, we only have a fence here, but I don't know how you are going to do with it. This is an old iron kind of, that kind of fan. I don't know how you're going to replace it, by what, but my concern is that we never have cars moving around here, so you better have some solids in here, block it, that, if this person is a new driver, drunk driver, or whatever, couldn't, cross the wall here. So you better have a solid wall here to protect me in that sense.
Yep.
Okay? And I guess other than that, I don't have other concerns, except they do mention something I like. They said they will have some educational section of this. That's great. I don't know about this current residents, because they have been there for 20 years or 10 years, and they're really good. As I said, we're friends. But I don't know when they first came on site, what kind of condition or shape there are. And this round, I checked with my neighbors. They all want to, be able to move back and stay, but they cannot for whatever reason. So now you're going to introduce new people like that. So to have an education section, part element there is great. But whether you have that person just as an office person, have an office there for 8 hours a day, or you would have her or him live in one of the units there, so that even during night, if anything happened, I can, get some help from some person on site. That's my concern. Okay, a great teacher was there during the day. and she disappeared. And then at nighttime, I really don't know what happened. So I hope you will keep or retain one unit for your education there or manager there. Then I would certainly feel more comfortable, right? Okay.
Great, thank you so much, appreciate it. So I just wanted to respond, so they are putting in a solid fence, they testified that they were putting in a
So
stockade
they're going
fence
to put
around.
a solid-
Yes,
okay,
yep,
okay.
yep, that was the testimony. I don't think there needs to be any pre-survey, there's no blasting. Yeah, so the work that they're proposing to do, they don't need to do any sort of survey of your property or anything like that. Sometimes, given you know, what somebody's proposing to do, you might have to go out and survey the neighboring properties to see if any damage. Their work doesn't kind of meet that threshold, so there's no kind of pre-survey.
Yeah, I just need an inspector to
Yep.
show up,
And-
to tell me his or her professional opinion and do something, professional.
Yeah, I think that you could pursue kind of a private thing if you wanted to document the status of your house, but from the city, the public perspective, there's noise control, there's dust control, rodent control. We add conditions into our decisions to make sure that, you know,
So
neighbors are protected.
I can call the city hall to talk with the inspector or engineer about it, or how?
Once it's underway.
Once it's, once it's underway.
Correct, yeah, once a project's underway, a project transitions under the oversight of the Inspectional Services Department. So if there were concerns with construction work or parking or noise, you know, too early, you could contact the city's Inspectional Services Department, and they'll reach out to the proponent.
So you mean I should wait until they start their project?
Correct,
Okay.
yes.
Thank you for your tip.
You're welcome.
Councilman Devine. Thank you.
I just wanted to let the gentleman know that I am a city councilor and that I'll give him my contact number and then I will work closely with him to make sure that everything is copacetic.
Perfect,
Okay.
thank you. Thank you for coming up. Yep, do you want to?
I just want to reiterate that we'll work with the neighbor to make sure that during the construction process that, you know, he's aware of everything going on and address any of his concerns as it goes. And as far as we have property management 24/7 with all of our properties, but not on site here 24/7. The unit will be made available to one of the residents and not the management team.
Yeah, but Rob, just to add on that, you know, you own and operate a number of properties here in the city for this clientele. So with the butters, I'm sure there's a call-in number, right?
That's correct.
That, you know, goes to
Yeah.
central, you know, centrally located, and you guys can disperse resources 24/7 as needed.
That's correct. That's correct, Rob. Thank you.
Okay, so this project also subject to peer review at this point?
Correct,
Yeah.
yep. This is peer review, and this is a new open, so to give us ample time to do that review, 2 months to the January 15th meeting would be the department's recommendation.
Motion that we move this to the January 15th, 2025 meeting.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And any opposed? None. Unanimous.
Thank you very much for your time.
Okay, thank you. All right. The next item on the agenda, public hearing, major modification, 101 General McConville Way, Planning Board case number 2024 COC 01. This public hearing shall be conducted to review the application of Hanover RS Limited Partnership, care of Hanover Company, 1 Marina Park Drive, Suite 701, Boston, Mass. 02210, for a certificate of consistency under the Quincy Center Urban Revitalization District Plan as amended and as defined within the Quincy zoning ordinance, Title 17, Section 8.3, Quincy Center District, Quincy Center Urban Revitalization District, Urban Renewal Uses, 9.3.3, Planning Board Rules and Regulations, and 10 definitions, and in accordance with Section 12.023, Section 2, Overall Redevelopment Strategy of the Quincy Center URDP as amended. The applicant requests the planning board to amend the certificate of consistency previously issued for the project, case number 2024, a certificate of consistency 01, to reflect the reconfiguration of its residential component. The current proposal consists of a redesigned new 7-story mixed-use building with 297 residential units, a reduction of 4 units from the approved project, and retail space as originally proposed with parking at ground level. A 10-level municipal parking garage, in addition of 2 levels from the approved project, with the total of 995 parking spaces will be constructed adjacent to the project. The proposal will also include structured exterior space and amenity space for the residents, along with professionally designed drainage controls and landscaping. The property the property contains 122,011 square feet of land and is located at 95, 100, 119, and 153 Parking Way, as well as the discontinued portion of Parking Way by the order of the City Council 2023-111, and a portion of the former Ross parking lot immediately south of the General's Bridge. The subject property is located within the Quincy Center zoning district 15 and is shown in part on Assessor's map 1148, lots 35, 67, and 68, and map 1165, lots 70 and 50. Attorney Mahoney.
Madam Chair, Attorney David Mahoney, and I represent Hanover RS Limited Partnership. As you recall, or you just mentioned, this COC was approved on February 21st, 2024. We're here tonight on a modification. My client and the city team, the Hanover team, have spent months reshaping the plan. It's a much more efficient and it's a much better looking plan. And I'll have DJ McKinnon come up and make the presentation to you.
Thank you, Dave. DJ McKinnon again. Now on our project. So I think most of you know the site. This is the former IHOP site. In fact, the IHOP is no longer there. Essentially, I'm going to walk to the plan, if that's okay. Can everybody hear me? My wife usually tells me I speak too loud anyway, so I'm going to speak up in case anybody has any questions. The overall plan actually hasn't changed that much. This development has always been kind of a sidewalk-to-sidewalk development. What changed is we took the parking garage, which before was exposed on 2 sides, and now we just have it exposed on 1 side. So the building now wraps the parking garage on 3 sides. And essentially the side that it now wraps is along Dunford Drive, which is along this side. So we have McConville up front here. We have Dunford, the General's Bridge in this area. And now what we've done is, this was after discussions with a lot of key people in the city, was to have the residential run along Dunford Drive as opposed to having an exposed parking garage. The only place where the parking garage is exposed now is actually on the back side, which is along the MBTA tracks and facing the Bergen Park. So Joe, if you can just flip a couple slides ahead, maybe one more. So this is our ground level plan. Ground level, the entrances are still the same, so main entrance here, in and out off of Conville. We have a right in and right out off of Hannon. Reason for that is they've now relocated the traffic signal down here. That was always planned, we knew about it. So that was always planned as a right in and right out. Those are in the same location. Residential lobby in this corner. As you come into the site, you continue straight. This is actually the ramp that goes up into the parking structure. But you'll see we start running sections of the residential building. This is at ground level, we have more kind of back of the house. And then this big wide area here, which is kind of another change and a new focus on the way the electric company is doing things. They're requiring us to have the transformers actually access right into the building. So we actually had to build this area here for transformers. We had to build another area here for transformers. We do have another transformer. We had our transformers all here before, but they are requiring more, especially with the advent of EV vehicles. And this is how we have to accommodate them at this point. The specialty grocer hasn't changed at all. It was the same specialty grocer. I can't say the name. As well as loading area is still here, restaurant, bank, and surface level parking is all the same. So the only real shift is we took this parking garage, and probably the easy way now is we flip forward another slide or two. Why don't we go one more? This is the first from the full residential level. We have the amenity up on that level, with kind of our courtyard area, above the podium. And then we have as we run the residential down this side, we have one residential unit here. This is actually kind of dead space because we have to accommodate these large ceilings for the large areas for the transformers. We have another unit here. But then we kind of wrap this garage, you can see the garage footprint here now. So we actually wrap it on three sides. And then we put one more, now really starts to show the picture. These are the residential floors as we go up. So we have the residential kind of wrapping this garage on three sides. We have elevators, stairway for the garage in this corner, so that'll be kind of a prominent glass feature in that side of the building. So what happened was the garage used to come out to this point, now it's shifted back to here. We dropped 4 units, so instead of being in 301, we're in 297. The overall parking count is actually the same, the 997, that actually includes the surface level parking. The garage has always been at roughly 800 vehicles, so we have roughly 800 vehicle garage. So that's really the shift that's occurred. We advance a bunch of slides until we get the renderings, make it easier to see what's actually happening. A couple more, Joe, please. Keep going. Okay, now we can start to see what I actually look at ground level. So this is Hannah Parkway in this area, McConville here. This is our corner where we have, looking at the bank in this corner. We've kept the kind of, ground level emphasis with kind of strong materials at the ground level, the residential above, specialty grocer in this area, and then our residential entrance along here. We go to the next slide. Looking back, we now have McConville here, Dunford Drive along this area as we had before, and then we've got residential going along Dunford. We've got we've actually brought the grade up to match the sidewalk. So today, if you go along the bridge, you'll see it actually still shows on this side. You'll see how they have the concrete railing in between the pilasters. That was because there was a grade change here. They still going to have a grade change here. We're actually able to remove that and make much nicer sidewalk area along the Dunford Drive side there. And again, this is our residential lobby. Jump to this one. This is just kind of close up to the specialty retail. It starts to show more materials. Another view along Dunford Drive. This is the garage entrance for people that will be entering. Vehicles obviously come into the building. And then if we go to the next one, this actually helps show how we kind of mask a 10-story garage as best you can in these developments. So we're actually on Bergen Parkway now. This is one place you're going to see this garage. And then we have Hannon Parkway here. So this is right at that intersection. So this is residential. And then what happens is the building steps back and jumps up. This is actually the 10-story garage section right here. The exterior of the garage, we've kind of got these punched windows. They'll probably look more like, believe it or not, an office building from a little bit of a distance. We wanted to have a very nice facade in the garage, similar to the effect that was done with the Gilroy garage. But in essence, we're still within the zoning. It's allowed by right to 10 stories and so forth, so that all conforms. But by pulling it back and squishing it, it pushed it up essentially. So entrance, exit still the same. So the only real big change is shifting this garage and pushing it up a bit to accommodate it. The rest of the so-called impacts, traffic, parking, all that, nothing has really changed to that end. So that's kind of the quick summary. Have any questions?
Any questions?
McKenna, I just have, sorry.
Go right ahead, no question.
When you're shopping at the specialty grocer, will there be like 1 hour free parking at the parking lot, or?
No, it's free the whole time.
Oh, it's free the whole time?
Yeah, no.
Okay.
If you park there and you're not going to the retail, we're gonna know about that. We're not gonna let you park there for the day. So we'll monitor it, kind of like up at Target. I mean, we try to do it in a discreet way, but you'll be able to park there as long as you need to whether you're going to the restaurant. If you go to You go to the grocer, then you go to the restaurant, you know, you might be there for a couple hours, which is fine.
And this project's underway, you've cleared IHOP and I see a trailer on site.
Yep, right now, removing soils, you know, utilities, things like that, but yep.
Nice, all right. That's all I have.
No, any other questions? No? Okay, I don't have any questions either. This is a public hearing, so if anybody here from the public wishing to speak on this project, sir? And while you come up, I'll just remind folks that you can sign in on the side for, against, or neutral, I think, too. So there are sign-in sheets there. Hello again.
Hi, my name is Taylor Campbell. I live at 133 Willow Street, not in a butter, but I spend a lot of time in Quincy Center. I realize this isn't the immediate subject of the request tonight, but I'm flabbergasted by the idea of adding 1,000 parking spaces in the middle of what should be a walkable, dense downtown area. We already have a gigantic parking garage that just went in that was displaced several ground-level retail establishments, some restaurants that used to be there. And I realize this may not be the right meeting for this, but this is mind-boggling. The housing is great. We need way more housing. We need, you know, a couple more zeros after the number of housing units you have, but that part's great. But 1,000 parking spaces is like, anyway, thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
Actually, I think I could follow up and maybe answer that. The 1,000 spaces are not just for the development. The where agreement works with the city for the 297 apartments, the city will actually own this parking garage. We'll have a long-term lease. We start out leasing essentially one space per unit, but we are allowed to reduce our number of spaces that we lease if we're not utilizing those spaces. We don't want to pay for spaces we're not using. The city's intent with this garage is to actually make those spaces available for other developments. So as other parcels downtown are developed, they make them available for that. There is some, there's definitely going to be a certain amount of public parking in it, very similar to the Kilroy garage, for people that are going to some of the neighboring shops, restaurants, things like that. But the city's actually going to manage the parking. So unlike a lot of private developments where every development is putting in, you know, X amount of parking, it's exclusive to that development, may or may not get used once it's built. This is built in a way that the city's going to manage the parking. We have enough for our development when it opens. 20 years from now, maybe we only need 200 parking spaces. They can then take those spaces and make them available for other uses throughout the city. So it's a way to it is a lot of parking up front, but with some of the potential developments that could occur in this area, the city can make those available to those other developments as they occur.
If I could just clarify, I'm actually not, it's not the number of units for this housing that I find flabbergasting, it's just the number of parking spaces for anyone to be using in the center of, the center of town, right next to the T station, right next to commuter rail, right next to how many dozen different bus lines in what, is what used to be a trolley line that went on Hancock Street many decades ago. This should be focused on people walking around, not on, these roads are already very unpleasant places to be. Now this is attracting even more driving to come in here. And the city should focus on walkable development downtown, not encourage more driving development downtown. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak on this project? Anyone else? Oh, sure.
Why wouldn't you?
I'm trying to get ping pong back and forth against, I forget your name, but I call him Barcelona because he compares it to Barcelona, and I agree. Barcelona's incredible. I've never been there, but I've seen pictures. But the idea that, people live above and they shop below and they all walk around. But that's not exactly here. But what I do see is I see the Hanover Company, and this is going to have across the street. We're going to have the new urgent care, which is going to be huge. People are going to be coming from places like Hanover, Hingham, New Orwell, and they're not going to be taking public transportation. They're going to be driving to that destination. So I believe we will need these parking spots, and it is going to create revenue to compensate us for the cost of the garage. And so I do agree with you, but at the same time, we do need the parking spots. So I see it very useful for those people from Hanover, Norwell, Hingham, all those types of places are gonna, I feel like we're gonna be a new destination. People aren't gonna go all the way into Boston to go see their doctors. They're gonna be coming to our new facility. So I can't wait for it. I keep looking at the empty spots, and I think in 10 years, it's just gonna be even better. So, great stuff.
Thank you. And final call, anyone wishing to speak? No? Okay. Without, I think, anything else, I think we can close this public hearing.
Motion to close the public hearing?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And then,
Yes.
we good?
We have a recommendation.
Oh, you do have a
Yep.
recommendation, okay.
We do. Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you to the board, I'll make a few comments following up. The Quincy Center Urban Renewal Plan was adopted in 2007, and the primary strategy of that plan was to analyze the city's two parking areas, the Hancock Lot and the Ross Garage area, and envision a new sort of era, or a new evolution to our downtown fabric, which was, and I think we could see that with Kilroy. We built Kilroy Garage and created 3 new development sites where there was just a surface lot there. In order to build that garage, some of the new parking load from the new development went in there, but there is a larger public parking component in the Kilroy Garage. The garage you see here today, paired with the other one with the medical office, is essentially the strategy to replace the former Ross Garage. And for anyone that remembers that, that was a 40-year-old structure that was long past its life. And in replacing that Ross Garage, we've paired that with roadway improvements with McConville Way and also the General's Bridge. And we've paired that with new high-quality private investment. We are here today on a major plan amendment, as Mr. McKinnon had described, that the urban renewal plan picks up on a 10% change in square footage, and there was that change in this case. I would also report to the board that this past May, the City Council approved the 5th bond authorization under the Quincy Center DIF program, which provides the financing for the construction of this public garage. Since that funding was put in place, the city has developed a design team with both city consultants and city departments that is meeting regularly, and I would say more recently, they're meeting weekly or multiple times per week. I believe the current timeline has the end of first quarter, we would have, the city would have final garage design plans to then go out and lock in, the contracts needed to build that. So this is, in a way, a bit of an update of the evolution of how this project is, but I would report to this board again that the city is actively working in partnership with this developer on all of the utility work, on all of the soil work. So when this change came in, we did not move it to peer review. It was not appropriate because we are acting through the urban renewal plan in partnership with the developer, and the city and the departments are participating in the design. So this, with that, the department does have a recommendation to approve this change. After consideration of the site plan accompanying documents and the comments received from the city staff, the department recommends the board approve the modification to the Certificate of Consistency Planning Board Case 2024 COC-01, subject to the approved special and general conditions of the Planning Board decision dated February 21st, 2024, as filed with the city clerk on March 1st, 2024, to add the following additional special condition, which would be number 20, which simply states the applicant shall continue to adhere to all conditions of the Certificate of Consistency Planning Board Case 2024 COC-1, dated February 21st, 2024, and the land disposition agreement dated December 19th, 2023. That would conclude the department's recommendation.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve consistent with the recommendation?
Motion to approve?
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Okay. That's great. And then, thank you.
Thanks very much.
Thank you. And then we do have one final business meeting item, Council Order 2024 97, amending chapter 375, zoning of creation of a congregate over 55 housing overlay district.
Yes, Madam Chair,
Yes.
to the board did receive earlier a copy of a communication which essentially serves as the report on a zoning amendment, which is the regulatory responsibility of this department. And it would be addressed to the city clerk and the clerk of council. Pursuant to the provision of General Law 40A subsection 5, the City of Quincy Planning Board held a public hearing at which interested persons were given an opportunity to be heard regarding Council Order 2024-97, an ordinance amending Chapter 375 of the Quincy Zoning Code for purposes of creating a senior housing overlay district. Members John Kelly, Larry Liuzzo as acting chair, Christopher Bede and PJ Foley were in attendance at the meeting, which occurred on October 16, 2024. The board heard a presentation from the city solicitor, James Timmons, who explained the purpose of the ordinance, how the proposed amendment would impact existing code provisions, and how the ordinance would impact both the redevelopment options for the proposed district and the development impacts on the existing parcels in the district. Excuse me. The district is now zoned predominantly Residence A, with some parcels located in a Residence B district. Following the presentation by the solicitor, the board heard from members of the public who offered the following concerns. Speakers requested that consideration be given to preserving as much open space as possible on the site, including preservation of trees on the campus, which speakers referred to as an arboretum, and trees of historical significance. Those both were in quotations. The high water table in the area was another, and frequent flooding were also suggested to be significant concerns. Parking in the area, which is now predominantly marked by single-family homes surrounding the existing college campus, was also a noted concern. The possibility of preserving for public use assets such as the college library and gymnasium were also mentioned. The public comments spoke to the fact that the proposed zoning ordinance, which provides for a review process regarding proposed redevelopment of the site, will be an extremely useful tool in addressing those concerns. In addition, the objective of the amendment to provide housing opportunities for senior housing that will allow for our aging population to remain in Quincy is a laudable one. For these reasons, the planning board members present, and I guess this would be if the board would choose to vote on this, would recommend passage of the council order without offering any proposed amendments. The board does recommend that review of the minimum lot area per dwelling unit requirement, should be looked into by the council. So that would conclude the department's report at this time. Would be happy to be answering any questions.
I have one question in terms of voting, since I was not present. I don't think Member Shaughnessy was present either. Do we abstain from the vote, or is it because we're voting on this today?
So I'm not sure if the Mullins rule would apply to a
Yeah.
zoning amendment
Yeah, I don't
versus
know.
a special permit.
So I think just to be safe, we
Would abstain?
abstain. I mean, because then you still have the 4, so that's sufficient.
Correct, and that would be sufficient to move
Yes.
the communication back to the city council, who will hold additional hearings on this amendment.
Yeah.
The council will also call for a public hearing to also hear from public comments as well.
Okay, so I will call though for the vote. Is there a vote in favor?
Make a motion, we vote in favor?
I'll second that.
Okay, and then all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, Ally,
Aye.
you are
I'm in
abstain.
favor.
You abstain, and so do I.
Oh, I have to say, okay.
Yes.
Sorry about that.
No, that's okay. We'll reflect that you abstain. And I think that is everything for tonight.
Motion to adjourn?
Yeah, so moved. Thank you.